to order. The time is precisely 1 p.m. Madam Secretary, will you please call roll?
This conference is being recorded. Only the main conference is recorded.
So the Underground Safety Board is being called to order at 1 p.m. I will ask that the Secretary please call roll.
Bianchini?
Here.
Charland?
Here.
Del Toro? Here. Johns?
Here.
Johnson?
Present.
Munoz?
Present.
Voss?
Here.
I would like to begin by acknowledging that we gather today on the ancestral homes of the Nisenan people. Sacramento was a gathering place for many local tribes who had lived through the Central Valley and the foothills for generations, and were the original stewards of this land. We would like to acknowledge the southern Madu people to the north, the Valley and Plains Miwok and Miwok people to the south of the American River, and the Patwin Wintun peoples to the west of the Sacramento River. Please join me in expressing our deepest respect and gratitude for our Indigenous neighbors and for their enduring care and protection of our shared lands and waterways. In addition, today I'd like to acknowledge that in 2016, 5,712 missing and murdered Indigenous cases were reported to the National Crime Information Center. And according to the Federal Center for Disease Control and Prevention, homicide is the third leading cause of death for Indigenous women between the ages of 15 and 24. And according to a study entitled Violence Against American Indian and Alaska Native Women and the Criminal Justice Response, what is known, conducted on behalf of the United States Department of Justice, in some tribal communities, Indigenous women face murder rates 10 times higher than the national average. No such study exists for urban areas, and little data exists in the epidemic of missing and murdered Indigenous people. And data that is available is incomplete and inadequate. The data that does exist on the issue focuses primarily on Indigenous women living on reservations, despite approximately 75% of Native people living in urban cities. And according to the first report conducted by the Urban Indian Health Institute in 2018 on missing and murdered Indigenous women in urban cities, 27% of the missing and murdered Indigenous women cases, the victims were 18 years of age or younger. The average age for missing and murdered Indigenous women was 29. California has the sixth highest death rate of Indigenous women in urban cities, and according to the most recent census data, California has the largest population of American Indians, more than any other state in the country. So I ask today that we be in unison with the Native American and Indigenous population of California and acknowledge the Feather Alert, which is in alignment with AB 1314, a preventative measure that will be utilized to reunify missing and endangered Indigenous persons to their home. Thank you. All right. So we'll talk about what to do in case of a safety or evacuation for those of you who are in attendance today. So we'll review in the event of an evacuation, we'll proceed out the doors back there into the back of the room. Take a left at that beautiful atrium, walk past the restroom and use the P Street doors to exit the building. Our assembly is across the street at Roosevelt Park. So I'd like to welcome everyone. There's so many people here today. That's wonderful. The public comment procedure is as follows. When it's public speaking opportunities, please walk up to the microphone in the middle of the room. Those attending via webinar who wish to provide public comments may press the raised hand button on the webinar or dial #2 to be placed in queue. When staff calls your name, you may unmute yourself and provide your comment. So we will proceed to agenda item number 2, which is public comments for items that are not on the agenda. We would like to ask that if the public, those of you in attendance today or those of you on the webinar, would like to make any comments, please do so. So we'll start with the public in person. If there are any public comments, please proceed to the podium. Seeing that there are no public in-person comments, host, are there any comments on the line?
There are no raised hands at this time.
All right. So we'll proceed to item number 3, which is approving previous meeting minutes. The next item before us is an action item to approve the minutes from the April 10th meeting. Public comments, if there are any. If you would like to make a comment on the previous meeting minutes, please proceed to the podium. Are there any webinar comments?
There are no raised hands at this time.
All right, thank you. All right, board members, after reviewing the minutes, are there any corrections that need to be made to the minutes? All right, seeing no corrections to the minutes, are there any objections to approving the minutes as distributed? Hearing no objections, I'll entertain a motion on approval of the minutes for the April 10th meeting as distributed.
Madam Chair, I'll accept the minutes as been presented.
You accept the minutes as presented? Would you
I'll
like to make
second.
the motion? Yes, okay, motion made by,
And I'll second it.
okay. I have a second from Bianchini
Perfect.
and Johnson. All right, so there is a motion to approve the meetings as presented by Member Johnson and seconded by Member Bianchini. Please vote by stating yes, no, or abstain when your name is called. Madam Secretary, will you please call the roll and record the votes?
Bianchini,
Yes.
Charland. Yes. Del Toro. Yes. Johns,
Yes.
Johnson,
Yes.
Munoz,
Yes.
Voss.
Yes.
The minutes for the April 10th meeting are approved. All right, so we will move on to items 4 through 14. So the way that we're going to do this today is a little bit different than other meetings. There are 4 through 14. There's 10 items on the next section of the agenda. As such, we will have all public comments now. So if you would like to make a comment on any of the hearing items, so that would be the notice of NOPV to the 21st Century Heating and Air Investigation, C2250001, NOPV to Sacramento County Region Parks, Investigation 223400004, decision of NOPV to AT&T Pac Bell Telephone Company, D223400004, and again, decision of NOPV to MCI Verizon Investigation 223400004. Decision on NOPV to Phoenix Electric Company Investigation 222980003. The NOPV to City and County of San Francisco Heat Power Light Department Investigation 222980003. Action item again on the NOPV to the City and County of San Francisco Municipal Transportation Agency Overhead Lines Department, 229800003. An action item on the NOPV to the City and County of San Francisco Parking and Traffic, 229800003. Decision on NOPV to City and County of San Francisco Public Works Department, 229800003. NOPV to City and County of San Francisco Department of Technology, 229800003. I know I'm giving you guys lots of time to consider if you have comments, right? So, and then finally, action item number 14, which is the NOPV to City and County of San Francisco Water Department Investigation 229800003. So if you'd like to make a comment on any of those, I gave you lots of time to consider. Now is the time for public in-person comments. We'll start with that first, and then we'll proceed to the webinar. Does anyone have any public comments? Okay. Host, do we have any comments on the webinar?
We do. We have a raised hand.
Okay, let's go ahead. And press #2 to unmute yourself.
User, you are able to speak.
Hi, good afternoon, Esteem Underground Safety Board. This is Iqbal Japa from San Francisco Department of Public Works. I'll be appearing in response to the case number D222980003 when there is an opportunity for me to present our case.
Okay.
There are no other raised hands.
Okay. Thank you.
So he will be able to present at the beginning of each item.
Okay. Are there any other webinar comments? No? Okay. All right. So we will proceed with item number 4, which is the decision on NOPV to 21st Century Heating and Air Investigation C225-00001. The next item before us is an action item on the decision on NOPV to 21st Century Heating and Air Investigation C225-00001. The violations that are set before them are Government Code 4216.2B, which is failure to notify the Regional Notification Center for planned excavation. 2, which is Government Code 4216.4C2, which is failure to call 911 upon causing or discovering damage to gas pipelines or high-priority installations. Number 3 is the Cal Code Regs Title 19, 4100A, which is failure to notify the Regional Notification Center of excavation damage to natural gas or hazardous liquid facility no later than 2 hours after the damage. There are 2 proposed sanctions: mandatory completion of the Underground Safety Board education course and a financial penalty in the amount to be determined by the board. The jurisdiction before us is the Contractor State Licensing Board, and the response was that 21st Century Heating and Air did not respond. When asked for the informal hearing opportunity, 21st Century Heating and Air did not respond to an informal hearing. So we will proceed to a discussion. Members, we would like to discuss. Oh, sorry. First of all, before we have any discussion, I'd like to ask if there is anybody that has any needs to recuse themselves.
Madam Chair, Member Charlin, I need to recuse myself from items 4 through 7.
Okay. Thank you. Does anybody else need to recuse themselves? All right. Let's give them a second.
Madam Chair, I'd like to get on the record as well that I am a mobile home park owner, although I'm not conflicted here.
Okay. Thank you. All right. Member Charlin has left the room, so we can go ahead and start the discussion. Members, let's take a moment to review the violations set before us. Again, the 3 violations are 42162B, 42164C2, and Title 19, 4100. The first order is to determine if we in fact agree that there has been a violation. And we'll start with the discussion first on if we agree with those 3 violations, and who would like to start the discussion?
Member Bianchini, I agree with all 3 of them, and probably some more that didn't get put on here as he's unlicensed contractor and so forth. And yeah, as far as this goes, I agree.
Madam Chair, I also agree.
All right. Are there any significant details that we would like to call out that helped us make this decision that they are in fact violations?
Member Bianchini, he was digging without a license. He didn't have any maps. He broke a propane line and then proceeded to break an electrical line that sparked a fire, and then he drove off. So that's my reason for agreement.
Member Voss here, I think in the interview process with our investigator, one of the other things there, he says he thought the property owner had called 811, which basically it says that he didn't do it. But yeah, I think the whole underlying tone of the investigation is pretty clear that it's like a domino effect. You don't do the one, you're not going to do the others, and so it's pretty clear in my book that. And then, you know, playing contractor without a license is also another problem. So when we get to that point of, recommending, the sanctions to the, California State License Board for contractors, it'll, he's gonna have some other issues coming in.
Madam Chair, Member Del Toro, one thing that I do want to bring to light to the board as well, I believe absolutely there should be some penalties, financial penalties. It's pretty serious what occurred here, but also want to point out that it's I believe a 2-man or 3-man operation, so it's a small business, so as we impose these penalties, that we keep it according to the size of the company.
Okay. Are there any board members that are in disagreement that there was a violation, or there is violation in alignment with the 3 that were presented before us? All right, so since Member Del Toro started the conversation, one of the recommendations was the education piece, and there was also the recommendation for sanctions, which we as the board can set. Shall we discuss the financial penalty? And perhaps for those who agree that there should be with Member Del Toro, shall we start that discussion?
Madam Chair, let me just, why don't we state the facts for the record here now that we all concur. And, so I find here that 21st Century Plumbing, Heating and Air is in violation of Government Code 4216.2B, excavating without first notifying the Regional 1 call center. Owner Robert Ringenitor's statement, he thought the property owner had called 811 as one of the facts. The company also violated Government Code 4216.4C2, failure to call 911 upon causing or discovering damage to gas pipelines or high-priority installations, specifically damaging electric and propane distribution lines. And California Code of Regulations, Title 19, 4100A, failure to notify the Regional Notification Center of excavation damage to natural gas or hazardous liquids facility no later than 2 hours after the damage.
Excellent. Thank you for summarizing that. So we are all in agreement with the statement that Member Voss has presented. And as such, there are two points of discussion. One is the education. Are we all in agreement that education is a good approach?
Yes.
Sounds like we all are. And then let's move on to sanctions. Let's discuss what those sanctions might be.
Member Voss here, after giving some consideration, small business owner and all, and we don't know whether, this business or having a contractor's license is one of the big things that you'll end up having to speak to the board or the other board too. I'm thinking along the lines of a fine of $5,000.
Okay. Now, is there any other discussion?
Madam Chair, having to do with the amount of the fine, $5,000, knowing that, I guess the jurisdiction for this would be the state contractor's license or the Public Utilities Commission for the mobile home park portion. I know they have their own fine amounts related to working, and so I think based on that amount that you've stated and what's the California State License Bureau, it's kind of probably a little more hefty than going on and taking into account what Member Del Toro said, is that they probably are a small company, and I think that may be a little hefty.
Thank you. Member Johnson. Any other discussion on this?
Oh, I'd also, Member Voss would like to do support him. He needs to go to our education class.
Yeah, right. So I think that there's some items that probably could have helped. Maybe if you're part of the CLB, the licensing board, you would know that these were all required. And there was some real, I guess, red flags. There was an attempt to not tell anybody that there was a leak. There was a fire. There was a whole senior community. I guess it's a mixed mobile park community, but it primarily was a 55 and older that was without power, and there was there wasn't a real urgency to report this. So My concern would be, yes, I understand that it's a small business, but the impacts were 2 days without utilities for these people. The impacts was a fire, and throughout the investigation, there was no indication that what they did was wrong. It was that, it didn't apply to them. The rules didn't apply to them. So that would be a concern, and what kind of message does this send to everyone else? Whether you have 2 employees or 200 employees, all it takes is one dig-in, and things could be catastrophic. That community could have gone up. They're lucky that the propane didn't go, that there was no explosion. So I'm okay with the 5,000 that you suggested, and I do understand that is a hefty. But we were fortunate in this situation that there was no loss of life. It just seems like there was a lot of strokes of luck that occurred to keep everyone safe, rather than good decision making, transparency, following any kind of rules, and then showing remorse and that there was going to be some sort of change in behavior. That was not evident from any of the comments. So.
Member Del Toro, there's definitely gross negligence, without a doubt, and it could have been catastrophic. I actually do agree with the $5,000 penalty, because it does need to be a heavy hand, and I know they're a small business. I'm very considerate to that, but there needs to be a clear message, especially with the fire starting. That was just a thought. We were brought here as a board because of horrible incidents, right, that resulted in death. We were just lucky that didn't occur here. So I'd just like to agree with Member Voss's suggestion of 5,000.
Member Johnson, my only concern is that there, like Member McKinney mentioned, there were some things that are missing, and that some people who weren't brought on board to hear, like the owner of the mobile home park, and I know they're not part of the investigation, and I think that they need to feel some of this as well, but we can't discuss that portion. But
we'll make a note of it, because we do have an opportunity in a later agenda item to discuss that, so I'll go ahead and add that to one of the things that we bring up. But I do want to focus on the fact that at the point of excavation, the responsibility lies, on the excavator, and calling the ticket. There's steps that have to be followed. So I guess at this point, let's see, are there any motions for us to entertain on how to proceed, either with the amount of the sanction, or do we need more discussion on that?
Member Voss here, I'm prepared to make a motion if our board's ready for it.
It sounds like we might be ready for it.
Okay. Okay. Member Voss here. I move to find that 21st Century Plumbing, Heating and Air violated Government Code 4216.2B and Government Code 4216.4C2 and California Code of Regulations Title 19, 4100A, and would benefit by taking the board's education course, along with a fine of $5,000. We recommend that these sanctions be referred to the California Contractor State License Board, who has authority over 21st Century Plumbing, Heating and Air.
I would suggest we vote first for guilt or innocence.
Okay.
Take that one first, and then
Do what now?
To separate them?
Make a finding as to probable violation before you make a vote on sanction.
I thought I already did that.
We agreed, but you want a formal vote of the...
I do want a formal vote.
Okay,
Yes.
to separate them?
Yes.
All right, so perhaps you can make a motion without the sanctions, but just on the three violations that we had all informally agreed that we were in alignment that there was a violation.
So you want to make a motion for just for the violations themselves and not the sanctions?
First, make them right,
Okay, all right.
and then make the sanctions,
Okay.
if you want to make sanctions.
All right, Member Voss here. I move to find that 21st Century Plumbing, Heating and Air violated Government Code 4216.2, B, GC, or Government Code 4216.4, C2, and California Code of Regulations, Title 19, 4100A, And would, do we agree that,
I have a motion on the table. Do I have a second to that?
I'll
I'll
second.
All right, so we'll have Del Toro on that one.
okay?
All right, so we'll go with that first. Madam Secretary, will you take the roll for the motion on hand?
Bianchini,
Yes.
Del Toro,
Yes?
Johns,
Yes.
Johnson,
Yes.
Munoz,
Yes.
Voss.
Yes.
All right, so motion carries. So now we are instructed to consider the sanctions. So the sanctions on hand are the mandatory completion of this, the Underground Safety Board education course, and a financial penalty, which we have discussed up to this point, of $5,000. Do I have a motion?
Member Voss here again. So we can go back and read the same routine, right? Okay. I move to find the 21st Century Plumbing, Heating, and Air violated Government Code 4216.2B and Government Code 4216.4C2 and California Code of Regulations Title 19, 4100A, and would benefit by taking the board's education course and a fine of $5,000. We recommend that these sanctions be referred to the California Contractor State License Board, who has authority over 21st Century Plumbing, Heating, and Air.
I have a motion on the table. Do I have a second?
Bianchini, I'll second.
Thank you. Madam Secretary, will you please take roll and the vote?
Bianchini,
Yes.
Del Toro,
Yes.
Johns,
Yes.
Johnson,
No.
Munoz,
Yes.
Voss.
Yes.
All right. The yes carry. All right, so can you read back the motion as it stands, so we have it stated for the record,
For the sanction,
for the sanction?
the sanction is mandatory completion of Underground Safety Board's education course and a financial penalty to be determined by the board of $5,000.
All right, thank you. All right, so we will move on to item number 5, which is the decision on the NOPV to Sacramento County Regional Parks Investigation D-2234-00004. The next item before us is an action item on the decision on NOPV to Sacramento County Regional Parks Investigation D-2234-00004. So, Randy's still out. Do we have anyone that needs to recuse themselves?
Madam Chair, I need to recuse myself.
Okay, well, thank you. All right. So let's discuss the violation. The Government Code 42162B, failure to notify the Regional Notification Center of planned excavation. There is a proposed sanction of a mandatory completion of the Underground Safety Board's education course. The jurisdiction is the Sacramento County Board of Supervisors, and there was a written response. Originally, we had believed that Sacramento County Regional Parks was going to have an informal hearing, but we heard from them this morning that they will not be presenting an informal hearing. So we'll go ahead and proceed to the board's discussion. So again, we'd like to start off the discussion with if we agree that there was a failure to comply with the Regional Notification Center of Planned Excavation 42162B, and if that is, if you are in agreement that there was a violation, please provide the data or the evidence that you used to make your decision. Who would like to start?
Member Bianchini, I don't believe there was a violation. It was a stump grinder, and there was an above-ground irrigation line, wires that were covered, and that's what got broke.
Okay. Do we have any dissenting opinion?
Member Voss here, based on the, pictures in Exhibit 8 and 9, it appears that it was buried. And you can see on, let's see, unless I'm not seeing this correctly, if you look at Exhibit 8 in our package investigative report, it appears that the grinder got down in the soil, if these are presented correctly, and Exhibit 8, the picture on the back page shows it below the soil. And then there's another picture in Exhibit 9, shows it below the grass level there that was there. So my interpretation is it looks like there was a violation.
Member Bianchini, I agree that it pulled it, but the, every picture that I see on here, the stump is still above the ground level, and he yanked the wire right off of the edge of the tree. And that's what he stated as well, but.
So a couple things. There was also a statement that Nelson stated that while there was no planned excavation that occurred, that the damaged facility was damaged at about 1 inch below the ground. So perhaps the original intention was not to excavate, as to go above the ground, but somehow, some way, it appears that the plane of the earth was broken, and it was more than just at the surface. It was actually below the ground, and so there's some emails where that goes back and forth. Now, I guess the first things first is just the concept of stump grinding is done so that the stump can go below grade or a little bit below grade, so that it's not, so it's not above grade. There is potential not just for the stump, but the roots, all of that is usually ground out. So once you hit the top of the stump or the top of the root, it's often that you hit the dirt, and the blades are designed specifically so that they can hit rocks, hit dirt. So there's a high probability when you're stump grinding, whether you intend to or not, that you will inadvertently fulfill the definition of excavation. And in this case, unfortunately, it appears that there was a facility that was in at a depth that was more than, it was only an inch or so below the ground. So I guess the question really is do we agree that the line was below the ground, as was stated by the investigation, and that it was an accidental dig-in? Were these facts clearly outlined in the investigation?
Member Bianchini, from the pictures that I see, and I don't disagree with the fact that it got broke, but the irrigation line was right in perpendicular alignment with the tree. And being an operator of excavation myself, I know they didn't try to put it under the tree. When they came up to the root ball, they probably hung it around the back of the tree until they could get clear dirt again and then bury the line. I agree that in the pictures it's exposed under the ground, but I'll guarantee you that was not under the ground at the tree. It went around the tree. So it's the question of whether he was going below grade. I can't, I don't know. The pictures aren't clear enough. And Member Munoz is right, except there are times when people, I've had more than 30 trees removed at my mobile home park, and we left them at grade for that very reason.
Yeah. Yeah, so in this case, it appears that there was an attempt to go slightly below grade, and that's where we had the event. Because if you look at the pictures to what Member Voss is saying, I think it's, let's see.
Page 5.
page 5, and then again behind Exhibit 8, the first picture, it's on the back of the page. You can see clearly that it's about an inch, maybe more, under the ground, and it's highlighted, it's white lined so that you can see it. But again, the most interesting part of this whole thing is an email from Ron Nelson. He says, photos and attachment were taken today at 11. Wire diameter looks like it's 5/16, 12 small colored wires. Pic shows wire about 1 inch below ground. The stump has to be grounded to ground level. So he's telling us that the wire was below grade. And it does look like that's what was in the pictures. And it is unfortunate, everybody wants to do the best job that they can, and nobody likes to see those stumps, I'm just saying. So I'm sure he was trying to do a great job to get the stump out of the way so nobody would look at it and think it's horrible. But it does pose a risk, right? So there's some kind of precedent that could be set. As trees grow, there's also the risk that the roots start lifting up facilities that were once lower could be coming up. There's always, we're looking at setting precedent. We're looking at safety. And in my own house, like you were saying, our water line moved up, broke, all kinds of exciting things, because the roots, they don't go where you want them to go, unfortunately. So I think, I don't know what the past was. I just know by this case, he's saying that there was, the wire was under the ground. And so by definition, that means it's a subsurface installation, and we do have a responsibility, call 811. Because this was a wire, this was just a small, it seems like nobody claimed it, but at the end of the day, this could have been something more. Again, could be something more impactful, and this could have gone sideways again. So I would caution stump grinders that are listening today, probably call 811 just in case it goes sideways. But is there any more discussion on if we believe that the wire was under the ground? And if so, would they comply with 4216-2B, which is notify the regional center when they have planned excavation?
Member Voss, I'm still believing that the tool act got into the soil.
Okay.
Based on what was represented. Interesting enough, in his email, one of his responses indicated next time he was going to get a ticket.
Yeah.
So, yeah, when you're not the one controlling the tool, there's always that possibility. Interesting, if they had a ticket, right, that probably wouldn't have showed up, and they would have had to do a damage ticket.
Yeah.
Based on the definition, clearly there was a break, so.
Okay. So it sounds like we are a little bit split, Member John?
Well, I concur with this being excavation. That seems to be the real issue.
Yeah.
Did he excavate without a ticket? It is a questionable issue, but I would, philosophically say, if somebody was injured due to using equipment that went down below the grade there, even though it might have been confined to a stump, I have seen utilities stumps grow around them. That over time trees change. So to me, it's excavation, and he failed to call. Is how I see it.
I have a question for the board, just because this is not my expertise. I know enough to get me in trouble. So the wiring was just an inch below ground. What's standard? Isn't it standard usually up 18? Or is this pretty standard out? Just out of...
There is no standard for irrigation wire. It's private,
Just wherever.
So it's,
okay, I was curious.
That's one of the troubling things with here. But to Member Voss's part, they admit, Sacramento County admits in theirs that it had leaves and debris and everything over, which is also a subsurface act, if you will. Mm-hmm. It was covered and not visible one way or another, but the stump grinder would have had no way of knowing, because even if he had a ticket and he will next time, it wouldn't have been marked. And the irrigation wires would have been broke.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so based on our last vote, let's break this up into pieces. Let's can I get a motion if we feel that there's a violation or no violation? So, we are going to be addressing the violation of 4216 2B. Can I get a motion whether we agree or disagree that there was a violation?
Member Voss will attempt to make a motion here. I find that Sacramento County Regional Parks is in violation of Government Code 4216.2B for excavating without first notifying the Regional Notification Center as evidence of pictures found in the investigative report, Exhibits 8 and 9, showing the excavation of soil below the soil line.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. I have a motion made by Member Voss and a second by Member Del Toro. Secretary, will you please call roll and take the vote?
Bianchini,
Yes.
Del Toro,
Yes?
Johns,
Yes.
Munoz,
Yes.
Voss.
Yes.
All right, motion carries. So the next portion that we need to discuss is the sanction. The sanction that is proposed is mandatory completion of the Underground Safety Board's education course. Is there any discussion on this? Is everybody in favor? This is pretty good. Sanction?
Do we have previous, NOPVs with them?
No. Okay. This is their first. All right. Can I get a motion to implement the sanction of the mandatory completion of the Underground Safety Board's education course?
Member Voss here. I do have one question. Does the Sacramento County Regional Parks, for this purpose, fall under the Dig Safe Board jurisdiction? Or am I looking at the wrong one?
The
So the Sacramento Regional Parks District is falls under local government, in particular the Sacramento County Board of Supervisors.
Okay, thank you.
So the recommendation would be to them.
The Sacramento Board of Supervisors? Okay.
Okay. So we will be making this sanction recommendation to the County Board of Supervisors. Do I have a motion?
Okay, I'll start now. Member Voss. Okay. So, Member Voss, I moved to find that Sacramento County Regional Parks violated Government Code 4216.2B and would benefit by taking the board's education course. We recommend that this sanction be referred to the Sacramento County Board of Supervisors, who has authority over the Sacramento County Regional Parks.
Do I have a second?
Member Bianchini, I'll second.
Okay. Thank you. All right. We have a motion by Member Voss and a second by Member Bianchini. Madam Secretary, will you please call roll and record the vote?
Bianchini,
Yes.
Del Toro,
Yes.
Johns,
Yes.
Munoz,
Yes.
Voss.
Yes.
All right, motion carries. Next, we'll move on to item number 6, which is the decision on NOPV to AT&T Pacific Bell Telephone Company investigation D 2234-00004. The next item before us is an action against the AT&T Pac Bell Telephone Company. We already have 2 members recused, Member Charlin and Member Johnson. The violations before us are California Code of Regulations, Title 19, Section 4151C, which is refusal to cooperate with the investigation. The proposed sanction is mandatory completion of the Underground Safety Board's education course, and the second proposed sanction is a financial penalty. The amount to be determined by the board. The jurisdiction would be the Underground Safety Board is the enforcement agency itself. And we did get a response for AT&T. They have provided a written response to contest the violation and the penalty with explanation about the circumstances surrounding the incident. There was no request for a formal hearing. So let us begin discussing the violation set before them, which is the refusal to cooperate with the investigation of 4151C.
Member Voss here, my first take on this is that they did not violate, this section of the code, because they actually did respond. Now, the response, and I think if we look at Exhibit 16, we did get a response from an AT&T representative that this is not an AT&T line, thanks. Now, there was no explanation on how they came to the conclusion. I don't know that there's any requirement that they have to provide that indicates that it's not theirs. The other thing that becomes confusing here is that if you go back and look at the ticket, there's actually two entities. There's the Pax Bell and there's the AT&T, and the letter was kind of sent to both when clearly it looks like there's two separate entities. Should have been two separate letters. That also led into it looks like they may not have had the contact correct for one of the entities. But all in all, I don't think in this case, because we approached it collectively, I don't see the violation myself.
Okay. Do we have additional discussion on this?
I concur with Member Voss. I read it the same way.
All right. So I have a bit of discussion that I'd like to have. Although this line is there's some disagreement between the respondents if this is irrigation line communication of some sort. What if the line was some other more high-risk line and the response was it's not mine without any detail? How would that affect our decision? Because at the end of the day, this kind of leans into abandoned lines, right? So how do you determine that something is yours or not yours? Are you allowed to just say, not mine? Do we have to be able to verify that it's mine or not mine? Because it makes it really easy just to say, not mine, without doing the due diligence like many of the respondents said that they gave reasons. My favorite one was, we do wet installations. This one looks pretty dry to me, right? So it was pretty tongue-in-cheek, but it was a response. My concern would be, how do we hold them, any respondents accountable to make sure that they take care of their facilities from beginning to end and not just say, it's not mine, or it's not mine anymore. Did we get the rest of the sentence? I don't know. It was so vague.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, there's a reason it's not his, because the wire's a little bit thicker than what his telephone wires would have been. But I will tell you that happens more often than you know. When we run into something, we have to dig around it. Nobody claims it. It's there, and you will find out months later. Oh, that we went back and looked. That's an abandoned line. If you're still open, you can take it out for us.
Right.
No, okay, it's gone. But yeah, it happens very often.
So I guess, did we ask enough questions? Did we go back enough? Did we follow up? Maybe we could do something more. But I would hate to say that there's no responsibility for you to say that something isn't yours, because if you just say something isn't yours, it could be yours, like Member Bianchini just said, and it does happen often. That's not mine, or you talk to the wrong person who didn't actually look to see if it was theirs, and then they find out later that it was theirs. So I think, I guess we have to really decide was there a violation because there was clearly two questions on there. If they owned the facility, or the questions were really nicely outlined in the email. What did it say? Are you the owner or operator of the pipeline depicted in the photo? And two, if you're not the owner or operator of the pipeline depicted in the photo, provide all information that establishes that fact. So did they answer that question with just, it's not mine? And if they didn't answer that question, do we feel that is a refusal to cooperate with an investigation?
Member Del Toro, I guess I'm confused at what we're trying to look for. We're going to make the assumption that they are professionals and they're looking at it and they know if it's theirs or not. So I feel like we're trying to make something out of nothing right now. If they say it's not their line, then we gotta believe it's not their line. I don't understand what else we're looking for. I think they would know, right? Or is there, I don't want to be a board that we make assumptions, well, what if? I'm looking at the facts, they say it's not theirs. I feel that we did do our due diligence. I think we asked all the right questions. I read through the emails. So I'm just not understanding where you're going with this, to be honest.
So the recommendation from our investigators is that we look at 4151 refusal to cooperate with the investigation. And the reason why is because there was 2 questions on there. It has come up often in many investigations and field experience that first blush with a facility, you'll ask, does this belong to anybody? And everyone says no right away. And then come to find out sometime later that it was somebody's, and their initial response was, no, it's not mine, just like Member Bianchini said. So staff recommended that we look at 4151 for refusal to cooperate with the investigation because they failed to answer the second question, which is provide fact that it was not, in fact, theirs. Now, in this case, it's pretty simple that it's not theirs, but it's just, it's how do we set precedent to make sure that when an investigation is occurring, that we're answering, that respondents are answering the question in its entirety.
Member Bianchini, the experience of the people that are looking at this, when I read through it and got to the pictures, the second I saw the picture, I knew what it was, having dug up irrigation wires and phone wires and so forth before. And the grouping in the pair for phone lines is much tighter, and so is the shield on it and everything else. So anybody that really looked at it and knew anything about those knew it wasn't his, and that's why his response was that way, I believe.
Okay.
I mean, like I said, I knew what it was exactly when I looked at it, and the question was never really answered in the report what it was.
Right.
But everybody that had anything to do with marking and responding knew what it was.
And Member Johns, generally when there's damages or something that I've found historically, there's a follow-up ticket, which there was here, and then you would have the no response, and that's kind of the official process. So following up on an investigation and not responding is kind of out of the norm of, normal of operating. So there is a mechanism to follow up and identify who it is, but in this case it wasn't serious enough, I think, to really warrant that process.
Okay.
So, Madam Chair, Member Del Toro, I think we should, if we want to discuss this further, just to keep it on track and just focusing on this NOPV, specifically to this entity, maybe we could always discuss that further, maybe in another meeting, and discuss how we might be able to get a little bit more information from them. But I'd like for us to stay focused on what we're discussing here.
Correct. And the question, according to this NOPV, was that the failure to answer the second question. Okay. So it sounds like we don't feel, or can I get a motion one way or the other if we feel that there was a violation of California Code Title 19, Section 4151C, refusal to cooperate with investigation?
Member Bianchini, I'll make a motion that we deny the action on in the investigation that stated that it wasn't properly marked. I don't know that that's defined in our regulation, that you have to answer all the questions and the why. That's a secondary issue to a positive response. And so I believe that there was no violation by AT&T of the refusal.
All right. So just to clean that up, am I hearing that there's a motion that there is no violation of Title 19, Section 4151C? Is that the motion?
I'm sorry, yes, it is.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Can I get a second?
Member Del Toro, second.
Okay. All right. Madam Secretary, will you please call roll and record the vote?
Bianchini,
Yes.
Del Toro,
Yes.
Johns,
So by saying yes, we're saying there's no violation, correct?
Correct.
Yes.
Munoz,
Yes.
Voss,
Yes.
All right, motion carries. All right, since there was no violation that we found, there will be no sanctions, and we'll move right along to item number 7, which is decision on NOPV to MCI WorldCom Verizon Investigation D2234000004. Again, Member Charlene Johnson have recused themselves, and we'll move on to the violation. So this violation, again, is California Code of Regulation Title 19, Section 4151C, which is refusal to cooperate with the investigation. The proposed sanctions are mandatory completion of the Underground Safety Board education course, and financial penalty. The second part would be the financial penalty, the amount to be determined by the board. The jurisdiction would be us. The Underground Safety Board is the enforcement agency, and there was no response provided. The informal hearing, there was none requested. So we need to first discuss if we think there is a violation, and if you recall, there was no response from this facility owner at all. So who would like to start the discussion?
Member Voss here. So this one, on its surface, it appears that, there was just no response. But collectively, looking at all the cases that we had to review for this meeting today, I'm wondering whether, we had access to the correct address. I mean, on its surface, I would say that they're in violation because there was no response, would be my take on it.
Okay.
Member Bianchini, I concur with Member Voss. This one's very clear.
Okay. All right, so it sounds like so far we are in agreement with the recommendations by our investigation team that there was a violation of Cal Code Title 19, 4151C, refusal to cooperate with the investigation. Can I get a motion on that?
Member Voss, I'm a little embarrassed that when I got through my papers, I mixed them all up and I can't find the ones I need.
There's a lot of cases.
I know, it's a lot of paper. It's okay.
I'll make a motion,
Go ahead,
Madam Chair. I make a motion that we find that on the case, investigating case 223400004, that there was a violation of Title 19, Section 4151C, with no response.
Okay. So to clean it up a little bit, I have a motion that MCI WorldCom Verizon by our board is found to have a violation of Title 19, Section 4151C. So that's the motion. Do I have a second? Okay. Member Voss, the second. Madam Secretary, can you please call roll and record the vote?
Bianchini,
Yes.
Del Toro,
Yes?
Johns,
Yes.
Munoz,
Yes.
and Voss.
Yes.
Motion carried. All right. So we'll move on to action item number 8, which is decision on NOPV to... Sorry. Yes, we have the sanction. Thank you for keeping me honest. So we can move on to the sanction. So the sanction put before us is mandatory completion of the Underground Safety Board's education course, and then the financial penalty if we determine as a board and we get to set the financial penalty amount. Do we have any discussion on the sanctions?
Member
Voss
Bianchini,
here. I think it's kind of unusual, right, not to get a response from anybody. It just seems unusual in this case. Not saying it didn't happen. My tendency on this one here, and I don't know whether MCI Verizon has had any violations with us before, but because I don't know that I have enough information, I'm going to just recommend the board's education course at this point.
I second.
Member Bianchini, you were
No,
saying?
I concur. That's exactly what I was gonna say, you know, let's recommend the education portion of it.
Okay. So,
Okay, you want a motion?
go ahead.
I still don't have my paperwork. I move, Member Voss here, I move that, that we find, MCI, WorldCom, Verizon in violation of the government code, California Code of Regulations, Title 19, Section 4151C, and that, for failing to cooperate in the investigation, and we recommend that, our proposed sanction is a mandatory completion of the board's education course, which will be referred to, does this, need some direction, Robin, does this one go to,
It's under our
PUC.
jurisdiction.
who would this one be, DigSafe Board? To the underground, DigSafe. So we have, for this matter, the board has direct jurisdiction over that.
Do I have a second?
Member Bianchini, I'll second.
Okay. All right. Madam Secretary, will you please call roll and record the vote?
Bianchini,
Yes.
Del Toro,
Yes?
Johns,
Yes.
Munoz,
Yes.
and Voss.
Yes.
All right, now we can move on to item 8, now that the motion is carried, which is the decision on the NOPV to Phoenix Electric Company Investigation D222980003.
Did you want to bring other members back in?
Yes, so we'll go ahead and invite members Charlene and Johnson to return. It's only been an hour, so we'll... Do we want to take a break while they come back? Okay, let's take a 10-minute break, so we'll be back at 2:15. We'll go ahead and...
This conference is being recorded. Only the main conference is recorded.
We'll go ahead and proceed with item 8. So item 8 is a notice of probable violation as a result of an investigation. And let's see. The violation would be Government Code 42164C3, failure to report the damage to the Regional Notification Center within 48 hours upon discovery of the damage. The proposed sanction would be mandatory completion of the Underground and Safety Board's education course. The jurisdiction is the Contractor State Licensing Board. There was no response provided. There was no request for an informal hearing. So just the next few of them are pretty stacked on top of each other, so we keep this all clear. This incident occurred on October 22nd, 2022 at the intersection of 16th Street and Portero Avenue in San Francisco, California. And Phoenix Electric Company struck and damaged an unmarked facility. The Regional Notification Center was notified by a ticket on October 25th, 2022, which was more than 48 hours after the damage. So we will start with a discussion from board members. What's on hand is, was there a violation of 42164C3, which is a failure to report the damage to the Regional Notification Center within the 48 hours? So who would like to start the discussion if there is an agreement with staff's recommendation that there was a violation?
Member Bianchini, on a technical sense, I guess there was. He was 1 day late. I don't know that he knew that there was a 48-hour or whether he could get a hold of the regional center one way or the other. I mean, there's no response back from him. But a day late seems pretty harsh to find a violation.
Okay. And do I have any other discussion?
Member Voss here, yeah, clearly based on the statements made from what I read and viewed based on the tickets, they were a day late.
Okay.
Yeah, that would cause him to be in violation of Government Code 4216.4C3.
Is there any dissenting opinions? All right. Based on the 48-hour reporting requirements, do I have any motion to find that the Phoenix Electric Company was in violation of 4216.4C3?
Member Voss, I move to find that Phoenix Electric Company violated Government Code 4216.4C3 and failure to report the damage to the Regional Notification Center within 48 hours upon discovery of the damage.
And do I have a second?
Member Bianchini, I'll second, although I'd like to read the code section again. It's Government Code Section 4216.4C3.
Thank you. That's okay, right? We've just cleaned up that motion a little bit. We just put it together. Okay. So just to clean it all up together, I had a motion for a violation of the Phoenix Electric Company of Government Code 4216.4C3, which is the failure to report the damage to the regional notification within 48 hours. So with that, Madam Secretary, will you please take roll and record the vote?
Bianchini?
Yes.
Charland?
Yes.
Del Toro?
Yes?
Johns?
Yes.
Johnson?
Yes.
Munoz?
Yes.
Voss?
Yes.
All right. Sounds like we are in agreement that the motion carries, that they are in fact in violation of 4216.4C3. And as such, we have the sanctions on to discuss. There's one sanction recommended by staff, which is the mandatory completion of the Underground Safety Board's education course. And it does, in fact, seem that they did report it. They probably really could benefit from some education, so we can shore up all the time frames and the requirements under 4216. Would anybody like to discuss this in more detail? If not, do we have a motion for the sanctions as proposed by our investigative team?
Member Bianchini, I'll make a motion that we request that, or we find that Phoenix Electric Company violated 4216.4C3 and should do our our educational program. He should be required to do our educational program.
All right, so I have a motion for the sanction of the completion of the Underground Safety Board's education course. Do I have a second?
Madam Chair, Johnson seconds.
All right. I have a first and a second. A motion by Member Bianchini and a second by Johnson. Madam Secretary, will you please take the roll and record the vote?
Bianchini?
Yes.
Charland? Yes. Del Toro?
Yes?
Johns?
Yes.
Johnson?
Yes.
Munoz?
Yes.
Voss?
Yes.
Motion carries. All right, so let's move on to item number 9, which is decision on NOPV to City and County of San Francisco Heat, Power, and Light Department Investigation D22980003. We'll go ahead and, are there any recusals on this? No. Okay. So the violations that are before us are, the first one is Government Code 42163C1A, failure to provide electronic positive response before the legal start date and time. Number 2, which is the California Code Regulation Title 19, Section 4151C, refusal to cooperate with investigation. 3, which is the California Code of Regulation Title 19, Section 44003A, which is failure to maintain current contact information with the Regional Notification Center. There are proposed sanctions. There's 2, which is the mandatory completion of the Underground Safety Board's education course, and the second one is the financial penalty, the amount to be determined by us, the board. The jurisdiction is the City and the County of San Francisco Board of Supervisors There was a written response, and the City and County of San Francisco Heat, Power, Light Department has requested an informal hearing, and as we heard from the public comments at the beginning, they're on the phone, on the webinar ready to discuss. So we'll move on to an informal hearing. City and County of San Francisco Heat, Power, Light Department has requested an informal hearing today in front of the board. The representative is on the line who will participate in the informal hearing. So our host, you can go ahead and, hold on a second. Can you confirm that he's still there? Okay. Okay, so they're still there. Good. Investigation staff will present the factual basis for the notice of probable violation. Staff will have 15 minutes to do so. So we'll start with that. And then the second thing that will happen was, just so that they know on the phone, is a representative from the City and County of San Francisco Heat, Power, Light Department will present reasons for contesting or whatever the allegations or reasons they may support a modification or elimination of their corrective action. So they'll also have, the City and County of San Francisco will have 15 minutes to present. So we'll start with the investigation staff. Will start by presenting their 15 minutes based on the factual basis for the notice of probable violation.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Section 4216.3C1A requires operators to provide electronic positive response to a locate request from the call center. The Department of Heat, Power, and Light did not provide the EPR until the day after the legal start date and time. The board's regulation, section 4151C, requires operators to comply with board investigations. The board may impose sanctions for acts that would hinder or impede an investigation. Here, the excavator damaged an unmarked line, and the investigator attempted to determine who operated the line. However, the Department of Heat, Power, and Light did not respond to the investigator's request regarding ownership of the damaged line. In the response to the NOPV, the department states it now has found the investigator's information request and that the requests were not seen at the time because they were routed to a clutter file. The department also argues that because another San Francisco entity, the Metro Transportation Authority at Exhibit 10, responded to the investigator, that each entity who knew of the request would have responded. Even if the acting bureau manager of the department uses a Microsoft Clutter setting, he has the responsibility to check his clutter file regularly. The response, further, his filter should not have been set to send emails with the address containing ca.gov to the clutter file. The response argues that because the investigator's request was in the clutter file, the department's failure to respond was not intentional. However, handling of its emails was intentional and resulted in the department ignoring the information request. The board's regulation, section 4003A, requires operators to maintain current and accurate address information with the call center. I would like to thank the department for the clear and concise exhibits number 1 and 2 to the response on maintaining current contact information with the call center. We are now in a position to recommend to the board that the department was not out of compliance regarding the contact information requirement.
All right, thank you. All right, now we'll move on to the representative from City and County of San Francisco, Heat, Power, and Light Department, and they will be given 15 minutes to present reasons for contesting the allegations or reasons that they may support a modification or elimination of their corrective action. Go ahead, host.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, and good afternoon, esteemed Underground Safety Board. My name is Iqbal Japa, Acting Bureau Manager of the Department of Public Works, City and County of San Francisco. One thing I wanted to let you know that I'm appearing before you for multiple items, item numbers 9 through 14, These are all interrelated. I'm representing multiple city departments, cities, MTA, Municipal Transportation Agency, Public Utilities Commission, and the Department of Public Works to contest the allegations that the identified city departments refused to cooperate with an investigation in violation of the California Code of Regulation Title 19, Sections 41, 51C, and failed to maintain the current contact information in violation of Section 4003A. In addition, with respect to the board's allegation that the city failed to provide sufficient electronic positive responses, I'm speaking on behalf of the city's Department of Technology as well. City objects to all of the state's allegations with the exception that it acknowledges that the certain city departments did not comply with the electronic positive response requirements. Even so, the city requests that the board decline recommending sanctions against the city due to city's lengthy history of work conducted without violations and the negligible safety consequences resulting from the city's omissions in case number D22298003. I'll begin by contextualizing the city's limited role in this enforcement case. In July 2020, the Department of Public Works moved from an office building at 30 Van Ness Avenue, its former address, to the new office building at 49 South Van Ness Avenue, its current address. After Public Works moved to the current address, the building at the former address was demolished. It remains under construction currently. I will now address the city's substantive responses to the notice. First, the board alleges the department, the SFPUC, and the SFMTA failed to maintain current contact information with the Regional Notification Center. Board is mistaken after the move. I know that allegation has been withdrawn. The Public Works timely updated the city's contact information with the USA North 811. Specifically, Public Works updated the contact information for the department account number 109284, the SFMTA account number 109600, and the SFPUC account numbers 109495 and 109442, City and County of San Francisco Water and Heat, Power, and Light. On July 24, 2020, July 30, 2020, and December 7th, 2020, the Public Works contacted the email addresses prescribed by USA North 811 to provide departments updated contact information. Following the department's address update, the department received written communications at the current address on June 17, 2022, October 24th, 2022, and December 23rd, 2022. These documents, which are Exhibits 3 and 4 to the city's response letter, indicate that USA North 811 was aware of the city's updated mailing address. Second, the board alleges the city failed to respond to 2 information request letters requesting information about the ownership of an unmarked facility, and the board investigators sent the first letter on November 28, 2022, and sent the second letter on December 14th, 2022. City would argue it could not fail to respond to information requests that it was unaware of, despite properly updating its mailing address. Public Works first became aware of the investigation after I received an email inquiry from a colleague at SFPUC on May 22nd, 2023, followed by a mailed copy of the notice dated May 9th, 2023, and addressed to the department at the current address. Notice cites that Section 4151C of the Title 19 of the California Code of Regulations, which states that any excavator or operator who obstructs an investigation by taking actions that were known or reasonably should have been known to prevent, hinder, or impede an investigation is subject to sanctions under the Act and this division. Yet the notice fails to allege any actions taken by the city that were known or reasonably should have been known to prevent, hinder, or impede the investigation. While the notice alleges that the city failed to respond to 2 information request letters requesting information about ownership of an unmarked facility, noting the board sent 2 letters on November 28th and December 14th, 2022, the department could not have failed to respond to information request letters that it had not received. Board sent both letters to the former address despite the department's multiple actions updating the address to the current address in July and December 2020. Board apparently emailed information requests in November and December 2022, but these emails were automatically diverted to the clutter folder of my Outlook account. So it is not set for these emails to be sent to the clutter. It's just Outlook recognizes certain emails from certain email addresses and automatically diverts. But it's not set to send the specific emails to a clutter folder of the Outlook. As a result, I was unaware of the information request letters until I received a mail copy of the notice, and I searched for any related information request letters and other correspondences. According to Microsoft, Clutter can help you filter low priority emails, saving time for your most important messages. And once and particular email is dragged from Clutter into the inbox, then the future emails are received in the inbox. After realizing the board's emails were diverted to the Clutter folder, I have taken that measure to ensure that future correspondences from the board will be delivered to the inbox rather than the Clutter. The department did not knowingly prevent, hinder, or impede the investigation, nor did the department fail to respond to an information request despite being aware of it. The notice alleges further that the February 7, 2023, the board mailed notices to the department at the address on file at the Regional Notification Center, and the board received the notice postmarked as returned to sender on February 15th, 2023. Again, it appears the board mailed the notice to the former address, despite the department's multiple actions updating the address. Public Works only became aware of the notices on or about May 22nd, 2023, after the notice was addressed correctly to the department's current address. In addition, the city departments that were aware of the information request attempted to cooperate. As the board staff acknowledged in Exhibit 10 of the notice, San Francisco MTA looked into and responded to the board staff's information request. Since Public Works made at least 3 attempts in 2020 to communicate to USA North 811 that the Public Works had moved to the current address, the city asserts it did not fail to maintain its current contact information, even though the board's internal database appears to have contained incorrect city contact information. Notably, USA North 811 was aware of the current address, as it had sent multiple letters to the current address, as shown in Exhibit 3. It is possible that the USA North 811 maintains multiple records of contact information, and all the records may not have been updated internally. In response to the request from the board for the contact information, USA North 811 may have provided incorrect information. The city would recommend that board consider looking into whether USA North 811 experienced technical problems that hindered the complete updating of its mailing records, or that led USA North 811 to provide correct information in response to the board's query, despite efforts by the city to update its contact information. USA North 811 staff have noted in public documents that as of November 2020, they had been extremely busy with our cutover to our new system. In addition, in the presentation at the board's January 9 and 10 to 2023 meeting, it was also mentioned that a lot of functionalities are not properly working. Many bugs need to be fixed. Third, the board alleges that SFMTA and PUC failed to comply with the electronic positive response requirements. PUC and SFMTA acknowledge the department failed to provide electronic positive responses before the legal start date and the time for the ticket at the issue. However, the city's errors or omissions were unintentional. In addition, any omissions by the city departments did not result in any damage because the facility, Phoenix Electric Stock, did not belong to the city. Moving forward, the city departments will take additional steps to ensure compliance with the Underground Safety Board's requirements, including by completing the Underground Safety Board's education course. Fourth, the board is considering whether to recommend assessment of sanctions against the city. Here, the board should decline to assess sanctions against the city due to factors described in Section 4201 of the Title 19, the California Code of Regulations. While the SFPUC and the SFMTA acknowledge the unintentional failure to provide sufficient electronic positive responses, this did not result in the incident at issue, and city denies that it had failed to maintain current contact information with the Regional Notification Center or refused to cooperate with an investigation. Available evidence suggests that USA North 811 did not have the current contact information in its system. The notice acknowledges that the violation did not cause substantial injury, environment, or property damage, and the respondent does not have a history of violation. In light of these factors and evidence that the SFPUC, MTA, and department did not receive USA North 811 communication and thus could not fail to respond to those communications, the city maintains that penalties are unwarranted and inappropriate. Section 4201, subsection A of the Title 19 of the California Code of Regulations states, then when determining whether to assess a sanction for the violation of the DigSafe Act of 2016, board may consider type of violation, its gravity, such as risk of or actual injury, death, or environmental or property damage, degree of culpability, including whether there were intervening acts or omissions by other persons, the respondent's history of work conducted without violations, and efforts taken by the respondent to prevent the violation, and once the violation occurred, the efforts taken to mitigate the safety consequences of the violation. These considerations weigh against assessing sanctions against the city in this case. In addition, Section 4201, subsection B of the Title 19 of the California Code of Regulations states, the department must consider evidence that is relevant to any of the following matters, including cooperation with state agencies during the investigation and whether respondent had received one or more information letters from board investigator. Despite the city's efforts to update its contact information with USA North 811 and the city, its departments were delayed in learning of the board's investigation due to incorrect contact information being on file. However, once the city learned of the board's investigation, it cooperated to the best of its ability. Thus, these considerations also weigh against assessing sanctions against the city. Thank you for your time, and I'm available to any questions that you may have.
Thank you. Staff may present a rebuttal to City and County of San Francisco Heat, Power, Light Department statement, if you choose. Staff, would you like to make a 5-minute rebuttal?
I didn't hear any points or facts that I did not address earlier, so I do not need a rebuttal.
So we'll move on to the board discussion, but before we go into the board discussion, I know that the representative talked about all of the cases kind of all at once, and I just want to remind us, and it's probably me, I'm reminding, that we're just going to be talking about item number 9, which is specifically to the City and County of San Francisco Heat, Power, Light. So the violations, again, we're going to go over them, is 42163C1A, which is the failure to provide electronic positive response before the legal start date and time. The second one is California Code of Regulation Title 19, Section 4151C, refusal to cooperate with the investigation. And it sounds like number 3, which is the Title 19, Section 4003A, failure to maintain current contact information, was withdrawn. Is that accurate, or you're? Okay, so that is still on the table then. So number 3 is the failure to maintain current contact information. And since there's so many of them, we'll probably just do them one at a time. I think that's a safe way to proceed so we don't get confused. So let's start with Government Code Section 4216C, or 42163C1A, which is that failure to provide electronic positive response before the legal start date and time. So starting with that, do I have a motion that either they were in violation or not in violation of electronic positive response?
Member Voss here, before we do that, I would just point out that, in Exhibit 5, it's pretty clear that several of the entities all failed to notify on a timely basis. So with that, I'm good. I can share a motion.
Any other discussion?
Member Johns, I just have one question on the, just because there's all the entities of San Francisco City and County. Do all of those, like the city lights and the different group, do they all have facilities within the project area, or are they co-owners, or how does that work? And maybe that's for you, Mr. Dapa. Does that include everybody, or how do your departments break out, just for my understanding?
So San Francisco PUC, SFPUC, owns and operates the water facilities, and they also have another enterprise that owns and operates the Power Enterprise facilities, which is street lighting facilities. Then SFMTA has a traffic signal and overhead, two different divisions, own and operate. And San Francisco Public Works, I'm, here appearing on behalf of all the departments because I was the representative for CCSF for those 4 accounts. One account under SFMTA traffic signal, and then 2 accounts at PUC. So I haven't looked into this specific project site, but my assumption would be that these departments would have the facilities in the vicinity of this project site or within the project limits.
Thank you.
And I think to be clear by the ticket itself, by the polygons presented to the notification center, all of them were notified because their polygons overlap in this area. So their boundaries were drawn in a way that it was triggered that all of them be notified to respond to this job. So essentially, the answer is they're exactly as they're listed on as Member Voss has said on Exhibit 5.
Member Bianchini, and whether or not they feel that the electronic positive response is no conflict if they don't have a conflict, if they're not there. But it's their responsibility when they're notified on the ticket because of the polygons to make that. So it's regardless of whether they have anything in the area or not. I mean, we get 15 people sometimes notified on a ticket, and of that, there's probably 11 or 12 nothing in the area, no conflict.
Okay, so the first discussion that we're having is on the electronic positive response. So do we have any more discussion, or are we ready for a motion?
I'm ready. Member Voss ready to prepare a motion.
Okay.
Before that, just
Okay.
discussion. One of the points brought up is that it didn't impact the work, the lines weren't impacted, and I think when it comes to this response, it's critical for just the whole operating system that everybody responds in a timely manner. The contractor's hanging out to dry until he gets those, and it's terribly important. So I just don't want it to be glossed over that, our line wasn't impacted. It's like, yes, you did impact the whole operation and how the system works.
Thank you.
Or should have.
All right, so I think Member Voss, you were in the middle of one of your motions.
Yes, Member Voss here. I move to find that the City and County of San Francisco, the Heat, Power, and Light Department violated Government Code 4216.3C 1A, failure to provide electronic positive response from the legal start date and time as evidenced in Exhibit 5 of the investigative report.
All right, so we have a motion. Do I have a second?
Member Bianchini, I will second.
Okay. We have a motion that the County of San Francisco Heat, Power, Light Department was in violation of 4216.3C1A. Madam Secretary, can you please take the roll call and record the vote?
Bianchini,
Yes.
Charland,
Yes.
Del Toro,
Yes.
Johns,
Yes.
Johnson,
Yes.
Munoz,
Yes.
and Voss.
Yes.
Okay, motion carries. So we'll move on to the California Code of Regulations, Title 19, Section 4151C, which is the refusal to cooperate with the investigation. So what we're looking for is discussion on whether we find that they are in violation or they're not in violation. So let's go ahead and start the discussion.
Member Bianchini, I concur with staff that it's our responsibility to check our clutter file all the time and to move stuff away, especially when you have the importance of the emergency response from a city on that. So I find them in violation.
Further discussion?
Member Voss here. I kind of find the opposite. I think, the refusal to cooperate with the investigation leads to, where they notify timely, and but I really can't make any comment until we get to the next violation on where I'm gonna go with that.
Member Del Toro, was that email active email or current? Okay. I agree with Mr. Bianchini.
Member Johns, I think it's kind of a hard thing to prove if they were really in violation of that, just in light of all the, what goes on in the positive response thing that they, yes, I don't think that they violated, intentionally violated, or, I find them, guilty of that.
Okay, so I have a couple comments. The clutter file, it does kind of it learns based on what you ignore, what to ignore, right? And the concern that I would have is, this is where, dig-ins are reported. This is where events are going to this email live in real time, expecting a response. How many times have we heard excavators say, we emailed them and we emailed them and we emailed them, they got nothing? So not managing your resources, not managing the tools, especially for a city and county entity, to be able to give that response time is really, it's really disappointing. And it does show a refusal to cooperate with the system or the machine that Member Johns talked about, in my opinion, because we really do count on everybody being that touch point. So I would agree with Member Bianchini that there was a refusal to cooperate with the investigation by means of allowing technology or an AI to think what is the priority when it comes to, underground safety.
Just Member Johnson, I kind of agree with Member Boss. Not knowing the answer or looking at item number 3, I couldn't really answer number 2.
Okay, so it sounds like we have a little bit of division on our opinion here. So,
Member Bianchini, I'd like to just address that issue. Part of their communication that they delivered to 811 North was the emails. Now, the physical address did change, and we all know what was happening to USA North in that time period. But an email is another action to get a hold of them. The USA North does not mail out every time that they have to do a positive response because it wouldn't get there in time.
right.
So it's part of the responsibility, if you put that email down, that you're going to be able to be contacted by USA North, that you own utilities in the area, your response has to be through that email. So to allow that, I don't need any answer on number 3. Number 2 is they didn't respond.
Yeah, I agree. And if I said something similar to any kind of bill, it would be the same, right? Like, you have to respond. Setting things, if you send things to the junk folder, you're still accountable. And this is safety. This is a pretty important part of our industry's safety. So I am still looking for a motion one way or the other. Do you feel like we should have more discussion, or, because I haven't heard from Member Charlene or Member Del Toro?
Well, I have my light on. Member Charlotte. Yeah, I agree that for convenience, that you would set up a system that would kind of dump into a bucket, but you do have to check to make sure it's accurate and it's working. And even when they were talking about changes that are making, I didn't hear, maybe I missed it, that they're going to put in a system to kind of check if they're going to keep this clutter file, that they are going to look at it and see what is coming in there, because it is a convenience factor, but yet these are important documents that are being set, so you can look at every one of them and not miss it. But if you choose to send it to a bucket, it does need to be checked periodically to see if there's other things that are going in there that need to be addressed and correct the system.
I'm sorry, Member Del Toro, you did. I did. Okay, sorry about that.
Unforgettable.
No. Okay.
Member Voss would like to chime in one more time, if it's okay, Madam Chair. I guess the problem is these things were backwards to me. In other words, I wanted to see that to maintain the current contact. And if that's addressed, I think the failure to cooperate comes into play. I don't know that I get the impression they failed, they intentionally. So when I'm reading that, refusal to cooperate with the investigation, it's like you call me up and you say, hey, Mr. Voss, I have some questions regarding the accident. I say, I ain't gonna talk to you. That, in my definition, is refusal to cooperate. So I guess that's where I'm hung up, and maybe it's semantics. Maybe I need to be educated that this area of the regulation is broader than, my opinion or my understanding of it. So I went through the evidence, and again, I don't want to jump ahead, right? We're still stuck here on number 2.
Yeah, and I think, go ahead.
Member Bianchini, just let me help educate. They found the emails in their clutter file. It's the address that they gave for me, a contractor, to notify them that I need a positive response.
We're not talking about positive response.
No, but we're talking, now we're...
The positive response is done.
Yeah, but it's the same intention that if you're not receiving either of those, which is the request for information, you're allowing that to happen. This is the address you gave 811 North to contact.
But they also gave them a physical address too, which for some magic reason, nothing was showing up.
Again.
Yeah, but it's amazing, when it came to billing and other things, the address was correct. So this goes back to the choices you have in their system for who to contact. So you have a member contact, you have an accounting contact, you have a billing contact. There's numerous things in there. I'm trying to give them the benefit of the doubt. I could be swayed the other way.
So,
but I just want to make sure that we hear it out.
Member Del Toro, I don't think it's the intent we're voting on, it's did they or did they not meet the expectations, right? Did we not communicate? Yes, we did. Is there an intention? Probably the intention wasn't there to be deceitful. However, they still have a responsibility. So we remove the word intent. I think that might help see things a little bit more clear. It's just facts. Did they or did they not respond? And they didn't. And did we contact them? Yes, we did. So I think we removed the intent. We don't think they're bad people. However, we need to look at facts.
Yeah, and just to be clear, there's two separate forms of communication that are independent. So primarily, if an event were to occur, which is what Member Bianchini is talking about, something that needs very quick response, email is the primary. By the time you put, we use snail mail, right? Every time you put the letter in the mail and it gets there, you're not looking for that quick response. And the concern is, for this investigation, that immediate response of the email is basically blocked to us. Like, they're not only can the board not get a hold of them, but any other excavator, anybody else that needed to contact them, there's a high chance based on their AI choosing for them to send things to clutter. So in some ways, they're saying that the AI has decided that since you don't read these emails often, we're just sending everything to clutter. And we have before us is we have to decide, is that an acceptable answer? Is it acceptable for a computer to make a decision when it's tied to all of these factors for an immediate response? And I would say that no, like at the end of the day, you gave this email out. The entity has a responsibility to make sure that that email, is on a safe list, that all of these come through safely. Otherwise, you might as well just send this email to a junk file that you never answer, right? And then therefore it's not with the intent, which is to respond, right? So they're two separate things. And it's because of the technology that we live in now, where machines are making decisions for us, which they keep warning us not to let them. And I think this is a good example that we have to train and educate our own staff to use those clutter boxes for what they're intended for, like not for preventing response and investigation or some kind of field excavation, maybe even a meeting, a field meet that could have prevented that from getting to the right hands. So I think that's more of what the issue is, and I think that's what Member Bianchini was trying to say.
Member Johnson, I think the issue is that if I knew that this was specifically for an investigation, if you're going to send me an investigation, email me this address. The contact information that's provided doesn't necessarily break it out like that. It's designated for like a catch-all. And that's, in this case, I don't think, if they knew it was from investigations from the DIG board, they may have given a different email address. And they may have not have been one that got caught in a clutter. And so I agree with Member Bianchini that you gave that email address, but the title of the information that was requested did not specifically speak to investigations. And I think if you did, then I would have given another email address that wouldn't have got caught up into the clutter.
Are you talking about the subject line on that email?
No, I'm talking about in the system where we went to find out where the contact information was.
Member Bianchini,
The system they went to was, I think our investigators went to, and we can have Brittany clarify, was the 811 system.
That's specifically what I'm talking about. The information that the one call centers are looking for is specifically information that they need. And you have one for billing, you have one for ticket information, there's a whole list of them.
Correct.
But if
That
there
was
was,
my point.
right.
But yes, I'll go back to, the clutter file did give me some pause when I saw that, because when you let Microsoft make the decision, that's not a good thing.
Yeah, and I think it's even more concerning now that you say that, is because the subject line on all of these were information request with USA Ticket, and then it gives a number. So this could be any kind of information. It could be a request for a field meet. It could be a request because I'm not sure that you showed up, or the lines like, or, you know, whatever. It could be anything, and it's going to a clutter file. So there is no requirement to have an investigation contact right now, right? But there is an investigation for a whole slew of things to prevent, you know, death, destruction in the field. And this is so, you know, USA Ticket number referenced in the header and the subject is so, you know, so on point that it should be responded to, that it is probably a little bit even more concerning now that you mentioned that, because that means a whole lot of stuff could go there. So there's all kinds of investigations that could be, you know.
Yeah, remember.
Oh, go ahead.
Well, that's a good point. What she's saying is, we know what they missed. And I bet you when they looked at it, they found a lot of stuff that they missed because they probably had it on, they wanted something that was address, need crew out, you know, they had specific words that would pass through. Well, they were asked for a survey, they were asked for updates, they were asked for anything else, it was thrown in there. And I don't believe anybody was looking at all this to say, hey, we set up this criteria, but what is coming through? Yeah. Should we open this up wider so we get everything? And let's just take the whole system away. They would have responded, I believe, because now they're looking at everything, but they chose to say, hey, we're going to limit it, and they chose words to limit it. And I believe there's even more things that probably the One Call Center was sending out. Hey, we're going to have a big cutover. Hey, we need you to update you. There's a lot of stuff they probably were not getting information back besides just this, because nobody was looking at, you know, other than, hey, we just want this stuff, because we have to actually send a tech out.
Yeah.
Member Bianchini, and I'll just remind the board that on page 5 of their response, item 4, third sentence, is moving forward, the city department will take additional steps to help ensure compliance with the Underground Safety Board requirements, including by completing an Underground Safety Board education course. The sentence right before that says the city error or omissions was unintentional. And we believe that. We're not saying it was done intentionally, but this is the email address you gave out for contact.
Okay. All right, so it sounds like we're kind of moving a little bit to a place where perhaps we can get a motion out there.
Member Bianchini, I'd be happy to make a motion.
Okay.
I find, and I think this board is making a motion on, the City and County of Sacramento Heat and Power and Light Department has violated California Code Regulation Title. Did I say San Francisco?
It's Sacramento.
City and County.
Oh, I'm sorry, Sacramento. It's supposed to be San Francisco. Thank you for that. They violated California Code Regulation Title 19, 4151C by not cooperating with our investigation.
Okay. So I have a motion on the table that is looking at the City and County of San Francisco Heat, Power, Light Department is in violation of Title 19, Section 4151C by Member Bianchini. Do I have a second?
Member Del Toro, second.
Thank you. All right, Madam Secretary, to call roll and record the vote.
Bianchini,
Yes.
Charland,
Yes.
Del Toro,
Yes?
Johns,
No.
Johnson, Johnson,
No. No.
Munoz,
Yes.
and Voss.
No.
Madam Secretary, will you please give me the count?
We have 4 yeses and 3 nos.
Okay, looks like the motion carries. All right, so the next one before us is California Code of Regulations, Title 19, Section 4003A, failure to maintain current contact information with the Regional Notification Center. So it sounds like we started some of that discussion, but let's just focus on the contact information with the Regional Center. Who would like to begin with that discussion?
Member Voss here, I'll start again. This is what I wanted to get to before we got to the other. It appears to me that they did make their attempt to get everything switched over back in 20, based on the emails and what was presented in the evidence file. I have a little experience with USA North, and yes, when you go into their website, there's different categories that you can assign different people for it. There's no question, right, that the email and the clutter file and all that, I get it. We had that problem. But what's real strange to me is why both addresses were showing up here in 22, because there's clearly correspondence that's, and maybe it's because not all the blocks were changed, but it's for an investigative thing. The member representative, which Mr. Hapa, right, is the member rep. You would think that he would be the point person, or it could be, but it goes back to the number of categories that 811 has. And so when our investigative staff goes and mines or requests data or contact addresses, there's more than just, there could be multiple in there under different categories. And so I think we just need to be mindful of that. And yeah, can any one of those be out of date? Yeah, I could see that happening. But I think the emails that we saw from 20 appeared that they made the attempt to correct the address. And all I'm basing my original basis on was that they made the attempt. Now, did someone from the city of San Francisco and log into their account and go look at their portal that verifies? That is a critical step. But if in their 811 USA North's system, if some of that old data is hanging out, and if someone goes and pulls it out and requested for somebody, that's a problem. And I don't know that to be the case here, but why did the old address keep showing up?
Member Bianchini, Attorney Harrington, if we've withdrawn this as a board, do we need to vote on that if staff has withdrawn this portion of the regulation?
No, they've only withdrawn the one part, and that part you don't discuss because it's not up anymore. It's not an accusation.
Wasn't that the failure to maintain that we withdrew?
4003A info, yeah.
Yeah, that's what
So
we're
we
talking
don't-
about right now.
So, okay, so we officially withdrew it then?
Withdrew that?
Okay.
Okay.
Is that accurate?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And that's going to be for all of them?
Well, we can only do one at a time.
I know.
Okay, so if, it sounds like we officially withdrew this one, so we will skip this one. All right, let's move on then, to sanctions. So currently, right now, we have a violation of 4216C, or 3C1A, which is the electronic positive response, and Title 19, Section 4151C, which is the refusal to cooperate with an investigation. Staff has made 2 recommendations for sanction. One is the Underground Safety Board's education course, and the next one is a financial penalty to be determined by us. let's discuss this. Let's, see where we kind of sit preliminarily. I think it sounded like there was some comments about even the respondent said that they were in favor of the education course. How do we feel on that one so far?
Member Bianchini, we agree with
Member
her.
Voss, that's a given.
Okay. All right, so now let's move to the second part, which is the financial penalty for the violations at hand that we found that they are in violation of. Do we feel that financial penalty is an appropriate sanction?
Member Voss, no, I do not.
Member Del Toro, I do not believe so.
I concur. I think, in being consistent with this board, if they had already done our education, that would be a different story, but they haven't, so.
Okay. Would anything change your opinion if we remember that electronic positive response has been in place since January 1st of 2021? That's 2.5 years later. Would it mean that we require everyone to go through our education before they do the electronic positive response? Does that set that precedent? Is that right? 2.5 years. There was an opportunity for everyone to have an extension. The same is true for the city and county of San Francisco. They did not ask for one, and now we're sitting here 2.5 years later. When is an appropriate time to issue a sanction for not following a requirement that has been in place for 2.5 years?
I can only go back to page 5.4 of their response, and it says the city errors or omissions were unintentional. They're apologizing that this happened, and they're going to try to fix it, but it was unintentional. I feel the same way as you do about if it was just we're not going to respond to those guys. It's too time consuming, but that's not what they're saying.
I agree.
Member Voss, just to be clear, they never did respond at all, correct? Because the system said late response, but there was no additional information to say that they ultimately responded, correct?
Right. So each, the 999 code is used whenever the 811 center has no response. So how many tickets does San Francisco get, the city and county get? How many times have they, decided that they're going to issue 999, which is failure to respond? That's 2.5 years worth. And although they're saying that they didn't know, I can't agree based on the investigation, based on the fact that 5 times in the same ticket they responded with no response. And all the other entities here were able to do that. And I could see if, we're on maybe the first 3, 6, 9 months, but we're on years. And how many other cities are not complying? Are we just going to give everyone a pass that they're going to do the education first? Or are we going to require that they actually do this? And as a reminder, electronic positive response is to help the excavator make better decisions. We have had, all kinds of things that could have gone sideways. And this really does help. And as we said, they have admitted that they didn't respond. And, we don't need to throw the whole amount at them, but some sort of sanction, financial sanction, sends a clear message, in my opinion, that you had time, you chose not to comply. We are not just going to give you a pass. Laws are laws for a reason, and we need an act. And I think that, a monetary sanction is appropriate, even if it's just symbolic that, hey, you've had time to comply. Don't just wait till you get caught. You should have asked for the extension.
Member Sharlin, I understand what you're saying, and if there was 100%, not 100%, but a heavily compliance, I kind of would go that way, but we still are having issues with the EPR, and I don't want to start a precedent of, a system that we start fining because it's been out there for a length of time. This is we're still relatively new, and we need to get the attention of them to say, hey, we're kinder in general, and we're giving you training. Now, if they come back with, a missed one, yeah, I absolutely think that, financial penalty is warranted. But I think we stay the course of some of the ones we've already done, where education is always our first step. So I would go with the education and no fine.
Member Del Toro, I believe the same. I don't think a fine is appropriate. I think based on their intention, based on having a representative here, that they're certainly taking accountability for that, just on their response time. So I don't believe we need to fine them for that. I think education is more than enough at this point.
Member Bianchini, go ahead, Member Johnson.
Yeah, I just concur with both members.
Yeah, and Member Munoz, I agree with you to the point that this shouldn't be something that slips under the rug. I'm looking at all the other ones we have, only one other one didn't have that on it. So it is up to them to make sure that they're doing this right, and I think that this has gotten to the attention of the person who is saying that we're going to make this right. Because it is annoying for a contractor out there, and you at some point, when you keep trying and you don't, you have to just put the 999 because they didn't respond, and you got to go. You got to dig. So it does cost us money when it happens, but I'm also in favor of the education, and if he's still on the line, don't come back here with this.
Member Voss, I think the other option we do have is, I'm not in favor of financial penalty at this point, but, we get reports from the two call centers about the ones that aren't responding. So I think it's just another step of finding if they're on that list again, and then send our investigators there to write it back up, and they can come right before us again for lack of positive response.
I like the way you think.
Ms. Member Johnson, my only concern is that if they don't have the technology ready, and we get one next week, and they're in the process, I don't know, I think that there should be some communication back to staff to let them know where they are and how soon they'll implement the process.
Okay. So although I would even like to have at least a $500 financial penalty just for the sake of it, I leave it up to the board to agree. I think it's just something that there's 482 cities in California, 482 cities. Are we going to give them all just education first? I mean, that's a lot of cities. So I will leave it at that. Even if it's just, to make sure that everyone's put on notice in the entire state, cities and counties must have electronic positive response. So with that, I will ask for a motion if there's any. I think we can take them one at a time. We can do them together, however you guys want to do it. But the sanctions, there's the two, which would be the education course and financial penalty, or more discussion.
Member Voss, I can prepare a motion for both of them with education as a sanction. And I think, would that be okay with our council?
Go ahead.
One motion, one sanction, two violations.
For both violations?
Yes.
Is that okay?
Yes.
Okay. Are we ready then?
Go ahead.
Oh, okay. And Ron, make sure, correct me if I goof it up, huh? Okay. Member Voss here. I move to find that the City and County of San Francisco Heat, Power, and Light Department violated Government Code 4216.3 C1A and California Code of Regulations Title 19 4151C, and would benefit by taking the board's educational course.
I have a motion by Member Voss. Do I have a second?
Member Bianchini, I'll second.
Okay. So I have a motion by Member Voss that would issue a sanction for the violation of 4216 3C1A and Title 19, Section 4150C to San Francisco Heat, Power, the City and County of San Francisco Heat, Power, and Light, with a sanction of the underground, for the completion of the Underground Safety Board's education course.
I need to amend that and that to be, recommended to the city and county board of supervisors of San Francisco.
Okay. I think that's just implied, because
Okay.
that's where we would set it anyway, so we're okay with
You okay?
with the motion. So that being said, that's the motion on the table, with the second by Bianchini. Madam Secretary, can you please call the roll and record the vote?
Bianchini,
Yes.
Charland,
Yes.
Del Toro,
Yes.
Johns,
Yes.
Johnson,
Yes.
Munoz,
Yes.
and Voss.
Yes.
All right, motion carries. All right, so we're moving on to action item number 10, which is the NOPV to City and County of San Francisco Municipal Transportation Agency Overhead Lines Department. Okay, so same investigation, D-2229800003. We had no recusals before, so we're good. And the violation on this, for this one, is Government Code 42163C1A, failure to provide electronic positive response before the legal start date and time. The proposed sanction is mandatory completion of the Underground Safety Board's education course, and the jurisdiction is the City and County of San Francisco Board of Supervisors. There was a written response. There was the informal hearing. I think he made the case for all of them, but given the way that we are operating, we will still provide the opportunity for the respondent on the line to have some time to just focus in on the San Francisco Municipal Transportation Agency if they're still there. Are they still there? Okay, good. But we will start with the investigations from the staff if they have a presentation that they'd like to hone in on this one.
Section 4216.3C1A requires operators to provide electronic positive response to a locate request from the call center. The Municipal Transportation Agency Overhead Lines Department never provided electronic positive response.
Thank you, and we will turn it over to the representative from the City and County of San Francisco Municipal Transportation Agency Overhead Lines Department.
Thank you. Good afternoon, SD Underground Safety Board. I think I did present the information previously, but I would like to add a few things. I think there was, the topic was discussed related to the email address that is in record. For the board's information, I would like to provide some additional information that my email address is listed as a member representative email information for the City and County of San Francisco, overseeing all of the 4 accounts that exist for various city departments. However, when the tickets are sent by USA North 11, there are separate email addresses that the notices are sent to individually to each department, and each department will respond to those notices. We are responding to responding to the notices that are sent to those email addresses. Additionally, I guess I will stop there. Maybe on the next one, I think I will add a little bit more information pertaining to this topic. But one thing I would say that I think we have acknowledged that we do accept that there was a failure to respond and provide an electronic positive response for this, and department is willing to take action, including taking the educational course. Thank you.
I'm sorry, were you done? Okay. Beth, do you have any rebuttal?
I do not need a rebuttal, thank you.
Oh, thank you. All right. So we'll proceed with the board discussion. Who would like to begin? Again, we're just focusing on the Government Code Section 42163C1A, which is the failure to provide electronic positive response before the legal start date and time.
Member Voss, it's the same issue as, what we found with the heat, power, and light department regarding this, violation of this code. And it's evidenced in Exhibit 5 of the investigative report.
Member Bianchini, I'd like to, whatever motion we make on these, and including on, that we make sure that it goes to this department, and the person that manages that in this department needs to be the one in the education class. It does, and we don't want to hear one guy showing up for the whole thing.
That's right.
Each one of the departments on positive response has to take responsibility for themselves, and according to the gentleman from City and County of San Francisco.
Can we dictate that?
Well, each response would go to the department, so they've decided to respond to the hearing in this fashion. That doesn't mean that that's how we would address the education. Is there any other discussion on this? All right. So, does anyone have a motion?
Member Voss here.
Yeah, let him do it.
Yeah, let him do it. I move to find that the City and County of San Francisco Municipal Transportation Agency Overhead Lines Department violated Government Code 4216.3C 1A for failure to provide electronic positive response before the legal start date and time.
Member Bianchini, I will second that.
Okay. All right. So we have a motion to find that the City and County of San Francisco Municipal Transportation Agency Overhead Lines Department is in violation of 4216.3C1A. Madam Secretary, will you please take the roll and record the vote?
Bianchini,
Yes.
Charland,
Yes.
Del Toro,
Yes.
Johns,
Yes.
Johnson,
Yes.
Munoz,
Yes.
Voss.
Yes.
All right. The motion carries. All right. So sanctions. Staff recommended the completion of the Underground Safety Board's education course. It sounds like we were all in agreement. Do we want to have discussion, or do we want to just do the motion? All right.
Okay. Member Voss here, I'll propose a motion. I move to find that the City and County of San Francisco Municipal Transportation Agency Overhead Lines Department violated Government Code 4216.3C1A and would benefit by taking the board's educational course.
Member Bianchini, I'll second that.
Right. All right, so we have a motion that the City and County of San Francisco Municipal Transportation Agency Overhead Lines Department investigation, or was found in violation of 4216.3C1A, and as such, that they have amended completion of the Underground Safety Board's education course. So, Madam Secretary, will you please take the roll and record the vote?
Bianchini,
Yes.
Charland,
Yes.
Del Toro,
Yes.
Johns,
Yes.
Johnson,
Yes.
Munoz,
Yes.
Voss.
Yes.
All right, motion carries. So moving on to item 11, the decision on the NOPV to the City and County of San Francisco Parking and Traffic Department. Again, it's the same investigation, D229800003. So in this one, the violation is the Government Code 4216.3C1A, the failure to provide the electronic positive response before the legal start date and time. 2 would be the California Code of Regulations, Title 19, Section 4151C, refusal to cooperate with investigations. And 3, which is the California Code of Regulations, Title 19, Section 4003A, failure to maintain current contact information with the Regional Notification Center. So the proposed sanctions presented to us by staff is, 1 is the mandatory completion of the education course, and 2, a financial penalty, the amount to be determined by the board. The jurisdiction would be the City and County of San Francisco Board of Supervisors. There was a written response, and I think we still have the representative on the call. And so we'll go ahead and proceed in the same fashion. Staff, you'll have 15 minutes to focus in on the San Francisco Parking and Traffic Department and the 3 violations before us.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First, I'll address the issue of the contact information issue. We would like to thank the department for clear and concise exhibits number 1 and 2 and their response on maintaining current contact information with the call center. We are now in the position to recommend to the board that the department was not out of compliance regarding the contact information requirement. Section 4216.3C1A requires operators to provide electronic positive response to the locate request from the call center. The Parking and Traffic Department did not provide any EPR response to the locate request from the call center. Regarding complying with the investigation, the board's regulation section 4151C requires operators to comply with board investigations. The board may impose sanctions for acts that would hinder or impede an investigation. Here, the excavator damaged an unmarked line and the investigator attempted to determine who operated the line. However, the Parking and Traffic Department did not respond to the investigator's request regarding ownership of the damaged line. In the response to the NOPV, the department states it now has found the investigator's information requests and that the requests were not seen at the time because they were routed to a clutter file. The department also argues that because another San Francisco entity, the Metro Transportation Authority, at Exhibit 10, responded to the investigator, that each entity who knew of the request would have responded. Even if the acting bureau manager of the department uses a Microsoft Clutter setting, he has the responsibility to check his Clutter file regularly. Further, his filter should never have been set to set emails with the address containing ca.gov to the Clutter file. The response argues that because the investigator's request was in the Clutter file, the department's failure to respond was not intentional. However, the handling of its emails was intentional and resulted in the department ignoring the information request. Thank you.
All right, thank you. So we'll go ahead and allow the representative from the City and County of San Francisco Parking and Traffic Department to present.
Good afternoon again. So one thing I would like to make it clear that SFMTA and Parking and Traffic, it's the same department. So that should be taken a note of that Parking and Traffic is part of the SFMTA. The other thing I wanted to add, in addition to the previous comments I had made, in response to the notifications that the individual departments receive, as I mentioned earlier, that tickets are sent to different email addresses for responses, electronic positive responses. My email address as a member rep for City and County of San Francisco overseeing 4 different accounts generally does not receive any communications from the Underground Service Alert USA Not 811 because regards to the notification of the tickets, if they have to contact them again to come out and do the positive identification at the site, all of those can be sent to the same email address that are in record for individual departments' accounts. But also, in addition to the email addresses where the USA tickets are sent, there are names and contact information that Underground Service Alert has in their possession for individual city departments. So I'm trying to get to making a couple of points. One is when I received the email and it went to the clutter, the way the system works is when the first time there are emails that are received by the particular email account, and for security reasons or whatever reasons, I think the system diverts the emails to the clutter or the junk or etc. So this is the first time that I had received the email from the safety board, from the investigator. So my understanding is based on the information that our IT has provided to me that if any particular email from any agencies that goes into the clutter, you can drag it back to the inbox, and in future correspondence from that particular sender would be received in the inbox. So I just wanted to make a note for the record that this was the first time the email communication was sent to me from the Underground Safety Board. And the way the computerized system works, the Microsoft Outlook, sometimes it recognizes certain emails saying that might be a risk, and that's why it sends to the clutter or the junk folder box. So that was one reason. So it wasn't like, it was set up, the system was set up to direct emails from Underground Safety Board to a clutter subfolder. The other thing that I would like to make a point that, as I mentioned, that generally it would not rise to my level because individual city departments have their own accounts and they receive the tickets and they respond. When Phoenix Electric struck, and then after 3 days, they contacted the USA and had the revised notice issued under the ticket number X228404711 revision 01X. One lesson learned to be learned here by USA North or the contractors or the excavators who are contacting USA for the notification. The response required for that electronic ticket was mentioned as no, response is not required. And generally that is mentioned when the excavator may have originally contacted USA for original ticket, and then their work continues beyond the original period and they want to extend the ticket, they will resend that ticket under the revision 01X, and that's where they would list that response is not required, no. But this was actually not an extension. This was a scenario where they had struck an existing conduit and they were trying to get the attention of the operating agencies. Instead of putting no, they should have put yes. That would have gotten the attention of the individual departments to look into it, into the body of the contact, because the body of the message at the bottom says a damaged line from telephone, cable, TV customer, and they were saying it's basically, it's a telephone or cable TV customer, right? That was the contractor's thinking was that this is not a sewer line, this is not an electric line, this is not a water line. It seems like it is a cable telecommunication line. So 2 lessons learned here. I think this kind of a ticket, when it is issued to the operators, it should not say the response is not required. It should say response is required. That would prompt the respondents to look at the body of the ticket. And then if the contractor is trying to identify who is the owner agency, then probably they don't mention that it belongs to telephone and cable, because my understanding is, let's say one of the city departments had, even though it was saying response is not required, they would have looked at the ticket and they would have scrolled down to look at the content of the ticket. They would have looked at that message saying damaged line from the telephone, cable, TV. And that would also potentially could be a trigger that, oh, it doesn't look like it's our facility. So these are a couple of things that I think shall be taken into consideration for improvement of the process. And the Exhibit 10 to the notice is also states that MTA did cooperate with the investigation at issue in item number 11 here. So I also wanted to make a note of that. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Staff, do you have a rebuttal?
Yes, 2 things. Number 1, first, they admit that they did not, the Parking and Traffic Department did not provide EPR response. And second, each city and county department in San Francisco is an individual member with the call center, and they all have their own member code.
Thank you. All right, so we will move on to board deliberations or board discussions. Let's review. So the violations that are proposed before us are 4216 3C1A, which is the failure to provide the electronic positive response. California Code, the second one is California Code, Title 19, Section 4151C, refusal to cooperate with investigations. And number 3, Title 19, Section 4003A, has been withdrawn by staff. Is that accurate, staff? Okay. So we only have 2 now. So let's go ahead and start the discussion to determine if we find that they are in violation of the 2 regulations set before us.
Member Voss, it's apparent that these violations are identical to what we had for heat, power, and light department.
Okay. So does that mean we want to continue discussion, or we want to make a motion? Motion. All right. Do I have a motion?
Okay. Member Voss, I move to find that the City and County of San Francisco Parking and Traffic Department violated Government Code 4216.3C 1A, failure to provide electronic positive response before the legal start date and time.
Do I have a second?
Member Bianchini, I'll second.
Okay. All right, so we have a motion that the City and County of San Francisco Parking and Traffic Department was in violation of Section 4216 3C1A. Madam Secretary, will you please take the roll and record the vote?
Bianchini,
Yes.
Charland,
Yes.
Del Toro,
Yes.
Johns,
Yes.
Johnson,
Yes.
Munoz,
Yes.
Voss,
Yes.
All right. Motion carries. So it sounds like we're going to break up the next one, which is the Title 19, Section 4151C, which is the refusal to cooperate in the investigation. And again, this one had to do with, very similar as Member Voss said, with the email going to, the AI deciding to send the email to a clutter file.
Okay, I'll provide Member Voss, I'll provide the motion. I move to find that the City and County of San Francisco Parking and Traffic Department violated California Code of Regulations Title 19, 4151C, refusal to cooperate with the investigation.
Do I have a second?
Member Bianchini, I'll second.
All right. So just to recap, we have a motion that the City and County of San Francisco Parking and Traffic Department is in violation of Title 19, Section 4151C. Madam Secretary, will you please take the roll and record the vote?
Bianchini,
Yes.
Charland,
Yes.
Del Toro,
Yes?
Johns,
No.
Johnson,
No.
Munoz,
Yes.
Voss,
No.
Madam Secretary, will you please confirm the count?
There's 4 yeses and 3 nos.
Okay, motion carries. All right, so let's move on to sanctions. There are 2 before us, the education and a financial penalty. I still feel the same like I felt on the last one, even if it's symbolic. Would we like to have discussion? All right, do I have a motion?
Member Voss here. I move to find that the City and County of San Francisco Parking and Traffic Department violated Government Code 4216.3C 1A and California Code of Regulations Title 19, 4151C, and would benefit by taking the board's educational course.
Member Bianchini, I'll second.
All right, so we have a motion that San Francisco Parking or City and County of San Francisco Parking and Traffic Department in violation of 4216 3C1A and Title 19, Section 4151C, complete the mandatory education course of the Underground Safety Board's education course. Sorry about that. Madam Secretary, can you please roll call and take the vote?
Bianchini,
Yes.
Charland,
Yes.
Del Toro,
Yes.
Johns,
Yes.
Johnson,
Yes.
Munoz,
Yes.
Voss.
Yes.
All right, motion carries. All right, so let's see. Moving on to, let's take a break if we're going to go till 5:30. Let's take a 10-minute break. Let's make a 15-minute break, and let's come back here at 4 o'clock. So we'll take a small recess for 15 minutes.
This conference is being recorded. Only the main conference is recorded.
Thank you. Welcome back from the break. How many online webinar participants do we have?
We currently have 18.
Okay, thank you. All right, so we're moving on to item 12, which is decision on the NOPV to City and County of San Francisco Public Works Department investigation, the same investigation, D22298003. The next item before us is an action item on the decision on NOPV to City and County of San Francisco Public Works Department. Are there any recusals? No. The violations are going to be, there's two of them. California Code of Regulations, Title 19, Section 4151C, refusal to cooperate with the investigation. And the second one will be California Code of Regulations, Title 19, Section 4003A, failure to maintain current contact information on the Regional Notification Center. Not for this one yet. So we'll go back to them. So the proposed sanctions are mandatory completion of the Underground Safety Board's education course, and the second one is a financial penalty, the amount to be determined by us, the board. And the jurisdiction for this one is the City of County San Francisco Board of Supervisors. There was a written response, and we do have the informal hearing with this one as well. So we will proceed with the same informal hearing due process procedures, which allows for the representative of the City and County of San Francisco Public Works Department to present. Are they still on the phone? Okay. And we will start with the investigation staff will present their factual basis for the NOPV. So you have 15 minutes, staff.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll be briefer this time. I recommend to the board that the department was not out of compliance regarding the contact information requirement. In regards to complying with the investigation, the board's regulation, Section 4151C, requires operators to comply with board investigations. The Public Works Department did not respond to the investigator's request regarding ownership of the damaged line. I've addressed the clutter file argument and asked that the board consider those points in this item. I can state those points again if you'd like.
All right. Let's proceed to our representative from the City and County of San Francisco Public Works Department.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Iqbal Dapa again from San Francisco Department of Public Works. San Francisco Department of Public Works has an excellent track record of cooperating and responding to USA messages. As it is shown here by providing electronic positive response, we do take this seriously. We have a dedicated staff that is assigned to respond to the USA tickets, and we have even backup staff that takes over when the primary staff is on leave. So we take this responding to the USA messages very seriously. Regards to the refusal to cooperate, again, I would reiterate that we refute this allegation because we did not refuse to cooperate. It's just the information that was communicated by the investigator did not come to us. And as soon as we came to know about this later in May, we did act on it and we started responding, as well as we communicated with the USA 811 North to delink and separate the account. So now going forward, each city departments will be able to represent themselves, and they will be able to receive the notifications and communications directly to those departments. Previously, that was not allowed. To San Francisco, we were told that you can have only one member representative, but you can have multiple accounts. Regards to regards to refusal to cooperate, I would reiterate that letters that has been acknowledged that were delivered to the incorrect address, those were not received. Regards to emails going to the clutter, I mentioned that earlier that this was the very first time the communications from Underground Safety Board was sent to me. And as a result, the system did not recognize to keep it in the inbox, and it sent it to the clutter. It was not known until the latest letter that was sent to me from the Underground Safety Board to the current address that prompted me to check whether there was any communication from the investigator. Nothing was found in the inbox, but there was an email that was found in the clutter. So again, I will reiterate, there was no intent not to cooperate. It's just the information was not available to us to respond to the Underground Safety Board. Thank you.
Thank you. Staff, do you have a rebuttal? No. All right, we'll proceed to board deliberations. Let's just review again. The only violation on the table is California Code of Regulations Title 19, Section 4151C, the refusal to cooperate with an investigation. The other proposed violation has been removed by staff. Who would like to start the discussion or make a motion?
Member Voss, I'll go ahead and proceed with the motion since it's similar to the previous San Francisco entity violation. Okay, I move to find that the City and County of San Francisco Public Works Department violated California Code of Regulations Title 19, 4151C, refusal to cooperate with the investigation.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Member Bianchini, I'll second.
All right. All right, so we have a motion on the table for the City and County of San Francisco Public Works investigation for violation of Title 19, Section 4151C, refusal to cooperate the investigation by Member Voss and a second by Member Bianchini. Madam Secretary, can you please call roll and record the vote?
Bianchini,
Yes.
Charland,
Yes.
Del Toro, Johns,
No.
Johnson,
No.
Munoz,
Yes.
Voss.
No.
Madam Secretary, is the vote 4-3?
Yes. 4 yeses, 3 noes.
Okay. Motion carries. All right, so for sanctions, there are 2 proposed, the education course and a financial penalty. I still feel the same way, just want to put it out there again. But we'll go ahead and move on to board discussion and or motions.
Member Voss here, I'll make a motion. If everybody's in agreement. I move to find that the City and County of San Francisco Public Works Department violated California Code of Regulations Title 19, 4151C, and would benefit by taking the board's educational course.
Member Bianchini, I'll second.
I have a motion for the NOPV, for the City and County of San Francisco Public Works Department in violation of Title 19, Section 4151C, complete a mandatory education course of the Underground Safety Board's training curriculum. Madam Secretary, will you please call the roll and take the vote?
Bianchini,
Yes.
Charland,
Yes.
Del Toro.
Yes.
Johns,
Yes.
Johnson,
Yes.
Munoz,
Yes.
Voss.
Yes.
All right, motion carries. All right, moving on to item 13, decision on NOPV to the City and County of San Francisco Department of Technology. Again, this is the same investigation, D2229800003. We'll proceed with, the violation again is 42163C1A, failure to provide electronic positive response before the legal start date and time. The proposed sanction is mandatory completion of the Underground Safety Board's education course. The jurisdiction is the City and County of San Francisco's Board of Supervisors. The response was written, and we do have the informal hearing. We have a representative from the City and County of San Francisco's Department of Technology. We'll proceed as we have with the previous ones, with due process, confirming that he's still on the phone. Okay, so we'll go ahead and start with staff presenting their factual-based reasons for the NOPV. Staff, you have 15 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Section 4216.3C1A requires operators to provide electronic positive response to the locate request from the call center. The Department of Technology did not provide any electronic positive response to the locate request from the call center. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Let's go ahead and have the representative from the City and County of San Francisco Department of Technology proceed with their statements.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair. So yes, City and County of San Francisco Department of Technology does acknowledge that there was a failure in terms of providing the electronic positive response. However, the city's error and omissions were unintentional, and the department intends to take additional steps to ensure compliance with the Underground Safety Board's requirements, including completing the Underground Safety Board's educational course. Thank you.
Thank you. So we'll proceed to the deliberation from the board. Again, we are discussing 42163C1A, which is the failure to provide electronic positive response. We can start with deliberations and/or motions.
Member Voss, seeing that this is similar to the other violations with the other entities, we'll proceed with the motion. Mine? I move to find that the City and County of San Francisco Department of Technology violated Government Code 4216.3C1A, failure to provide electronic positive response before the legal start date and time.
Do I have a second?
Member Bianchini, I'll second.
Thank you. All right. We have a motion for the City and County of San Francisco Department of Technology violating, let's see, the 42163C1A electronic positive response. Madam Secretary, will you please call roll and record the vote?
Bianchini,
Yes.
Charland,
Yes.
Del Toro,
Yes.
Johns,
Yes.
Johnson,
Yes.
Munoz,
Yes.
Voss.
Yes.
Okay, motion carries. The discussion of sanction presented to us by staff is completion of the Underground Safety Board's education course. I would turn it over to board deliberations and/or motions.
Member Voss, I'll make a motion, again, being similar to the previous violations and entities. I move to find that the City and County of San Francisco Department of Technology violated its Government Code 4216.3C1A and would benefit by taking the board's educational course.
Member Del Toro, I second.
Thank you, Member Del Toro. I will go ahead and ask our Madam Secretary to call roll and record the vote.
Bianchini,
Yes.
Charland,
Yes.
Del Toro,
Yes?
Johns,
Yes.
Johnson,
Yes.
Munoz,
Yes.
Goff,
Yes.
All right, motion carries. All right. We'll move on to item number 14. The next item is a decision on the NOPV to the City and County of San Francisco Water Department. Again, the same investigation, D222980003. In this case, we have before us 3 violations. 42163C1A, failure to provide electronic positive response. California Code of Regulations, Title 19, Section 4151C, refusal to cooperate with an investigation. And California Code Regulation Title 19, Section 4003A, failure to maintain current contact information with the Regional Notification Center. There are 2 proposed sanctions. One is the mandatory completion of the education course, and the second one is a financial penalty. The jurisdiction, again, is the City and County of San Francisco Board of Supervisors. There was a written response, and we are going to proceed with due process in an informal hearing. We'll proceed in the same fashion. I'm going to assume that our representative is still on the call, and I'll turn it over to staff for their 15-minute factual basis for the NOPV.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We are now in a position to recommend to the board that the department was not out of compliance regarding the contact information requirement. Regarding electronic positive response, the department did not provide any electronic positive response to the locate request from the call center. Regarding complying with the investigation, the board may impose sanctions or acts that would hinder or impede an investigation. Here, the excavator damaged an unmarked line, and the investigator attempted to determine who operated the line. However, the water department did not respond to the investigator's request regarding ownership of the damaged line. Thank you.
We'll go ahead and proceed to our representative.
Thank you, and good afternoon again. San Francisco Water Department does acknowledge that department failed to provide electronic positive response. However, it was not intentional, and the department will take additional steps to ensure compliance with the Underground Safety Board's requirements, including by completing the Underground Safety Board's education course. Regards to the refusal to cooperate with the investigation, again, reiterating that the department did not refuse to cooperate, as the communication from the Underground Safety Board's investigator did not come to the department's attention in time for the department to provide a response. But as soon as it was known to the department and the City and County of San Francisco has responded. Thank you.
Thank you. Staff, would you like to rebuttal?
Yes. One moment. I would just like to state that the department acknowledges that they did not respond to the EPR request.
Thank you. We'll go ahead and turn it over to board discussion, deliberation, and/or motions. We will again be...
Excuse me, Madam Chair. You're supposed to give the person on the line a chance to rebut her rebuttal. Which,
Respondent, would you like to rebuttal the rebuttal?
One moment, I'm in the process of unmuting him.
I have no further comments.
Okay, so what's set before us is two violations now. 4216 3C1A, failure to provide electronic positive response, and two, would be Title 19 refusal to cooperate with. Who would like to start the discussion from the board?
Did everybody hear me? I know they heard me in the room here, but I guess the public. Member Voss here, just to restate that this is a similar case to what the other San Francisco entity, Heat, Power, and Light Department, and so I suggest we move forward with the motion.
I just have one last thing. You know, I wanna just kind of harp in on the fact that the department is acknowledging they did not respond to the EPR request. They also stated that it wasn't intentional. However, we've sat here for months and many presentations from the call centers saying that in their reminder bills, in their bills, on their websites, EPR is everywhere. I just don't see that that's we didn't mean to, we didn't know, it wasn't intentional, when there are so many reminders that have gone out for so long. So I just want to make sure that this is not an accidental, you don't comply with EPR. You have to work really hard to ignore almost every flyer, every banner on 811's call center. It's like as soon as you log in, it says that. You have to really work hard not to see all that information. And I just want to make sure that it's not, they may not have complied, but it wasn't just because of not knowing or, you know, without having the information at their disposal. Does anybody else have any further comments?
Member Voss, yeah, I'll just chime in that I think the next time that any of these city entities come before this board, that they'll be treated a little heavier, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the message, you know, because hopefully there was 18 people still on the call. If you represent a city or a county, please make sure that you're complying with the EPR. Any other additional discussion? Do we have a motion?
Member Voss here, I'll go ahead. I move to find that the city and county of San Francisco Water Department in violation of Government Code 4216.3 C1A, failure to provide electronic positive response before the legal start date and time.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Give everybody a shot.
Charlene, all right. All right, so we have a motion on the floor to find that they are in violation of 4216 3C1A, failure to provide electronic positive response. Madam Secretary, please call roll and record the vote.
Bianchini,
Yes.
Charland,
Yes.
Del Toro,
Yes?
Johns,
Yes.
Johnson,
Yes.
Munoz,
Yes.
Voss.
Yes.
All right, motion carries. On the second violation, which is the California Code of Regulations, Title 19, Section 4151C, refusal to cooperate with the investigation. Do we need discussion? Do we have a motion How would we like to proceed, Board?
Member Voss, I move to find that the City and County of San Francisco Water Department violated California Code of Regulations, Title 19, 4151C, refusal to cooperate with the investigation.
Member Bianchini, I'll second.
Right, so we have our motion for the violation of Title 19, Section 4151C. Madam Secretary, call roll and record the vote.
Bianchini,
Yes.
Charland,
Yes.
Del Toro,
Yes.
Johns,
No.
Johnson,
No.
Munoz,
Yes?
Voss,
No.
Right. Madam Secretary, is the vote 4 yes, 3 no?
correct, 4 yeses, 3 nos.
Motion carries. All right, now to the order of sanctions. We have 2 sanctions before us, the education course and or financial penalties. Who would like to start the discussion?
Madam Chair, Member Voss here, I recommend we go to motion as it's similar cases as the previous San Francisco case,
And that would be education.
education.
Okay. All right, I would like to entertain a motion.
Member Charlene, second.
Oh, no.
Motion
I would
and
like to entertain one, so would you like to make the motion?
I don't want to slow this thing down.
Well, Randy, go ahead and if you have something to say. You okay?
I'm saying you got it.
You got it, okay, all right. All right, here we go. Okay, let's see if we can get the last one correct. Okay.
I'm ready.
You ready? Okay, Member Voss here. I move to find that the City and County of San Francisco Water Department violated Government Code 4216.3C, 1A, and also California Code of Regulations, Title 19, 4151C, and would benefit by taking the board's educational course.
Member Charlene, second.
Okay. Madam Secretary, we have a motion on the table by Member Voss and a second by Member Charlene. Will you please take roll and record the vote?
Bianchini,
Yes.
Charland,
Yes.
Del Toro,
Yes.
Johns,
Yes.
Johnson,
Yes.
Munoz,
Yes.
Voss,
Yes.
All right, motion carries. All right. We'll go ahead and proceed to item 15, but I regret to inform you that staff has asked us to pull this item off the agenda for a later date. So item 15 is being pulled from today's agenda and will be brought up at a later time. Item 16 is the One Call Center updates, and I believe they probably need more than 30 minutes to present, or are you guys okay in 30 minutes? All right, so we'll move on to item 16, the One Call Center updates. The call center metrics and updates will be presented by both James Wingate for the north and Ann Diamond for the south, and it looks like James Wingate is going to present first as he is already at the podium. So go ahead and actually we need to start with if there's any public comments first. Does anybody have any public comments? All right. Are there any webinar comments?
There are no raised hands.
All right, so we'll go ahead and allow the presentation to occur.
I'm not sure can you guys hear me through the speakers? Okay, I guess the light is just not working then. Light is not working, okay. Good afternoon, board members and staff. James Wingate from USA North 811. And Ann and I take turns about who's going to present the metrics, and this month it's my turn, so that's how it goes. This meeting, I should say, is my turn. Although I noticed a few typos in here that I swear I fixed, but I'll give you correct numbers as we go. Can I drive that, or who's clicking for me? Oh, Amy is? Okay. Or Amber, sorry, Amber. Okay. For ticket volume, if you can read that,
I've got a complaint, I want a TV screen here in front of me so I can see it.
Right, okay, yeah.
Here.
So, ticket volume, Dig Alert is off to a great start this year. They're on pace for over 1 million tickets. May was their busiest month ever, and then they had a day in June when they had their busiest ticket volume, single day record. So Dig Alert is off to a fantastic start from a volume perspective. We in the north are not off to a fantastic start from a volume perspective, depending on your point of view, I suppose. We are down about 25%. In California. Our Nevada, as you know, we cover Nevada, and while it's not relevant to this board, I just like to give you numbers for another point of reference. And Nevada is down about 5%. So big swing in California. As I mentioned at our last meeting, well, you know what? I'm going to get to that when I get to my update part. So let me just keep going. Ticket delivery, I'm trying to remember if you guys want every stat to go over that or if you want us to let you answer questions. But anyway, I have some typos in there. For example, you can see that where it says tickets created online, 147,000, but if you look on the right, at the top, new tickets is 343,000. So obviously those are, I realize that this column in red on the left side is apparently only having my same numbers from the last time I did this, and so I swear I updated those, but I guess somehow those got dropped, so I apologize. I'll get you those correct numbers updated tonight. I could do it in time for tomorrow if you want to see those for this column. I think it's only this slide. But our renewals in the north are still down significantly. We're down about 48% on renewals compared to last year. And I think I talked about that before, but we believe that was due to tickets that were unable to be imported from the old system into the new system, and that forced excavators to look at these tickets and decide if they really need them, and a whole bunch got dropped. So about 130,000 renewal tickets were no longer renewed. So that is continuing to persist. And so that's why one reason why our volume's down. But if I knew every reason, then I would be making money on Wall Street or in Vegas. But hard to predict with lots of factors. Our speed of answer, Dig Alert is doing fantastically on speed of answer. They're at 26 seconds for the year. That shows 411. I'm actually not quite that bad for the actual. Slightly better. Through June, actually, we're 357, but May and June were 258 and 254. So we're coming down. We did, as you know, when we changed the new ticket system, steep learning curve, we also added some more questions that we haven't had before and had to sign people up. Everyone has to have an account. And then we released a feature in March that did also have another big effect, in April that had another big effect, and that was our ticket sharing, which was where one person can share tickets that they create. By default, you could only see your own tickets that you create, and now that feature was fixed to where they can share them with other people, and there were all kinds of questions about that. So that gave us a spike in the wrong direction in April, and now we're coming back down again. So we hope to get that in check, but we're still struggling with that one. As far as ticket types on the side, you see those numbers, damages, exposed, all those are still a relatively small percentage. We have been having a little bit of a spike in ACE tickets. The ag community is stepping up. We'd like to hope that that's a sign of collaboration. I know the Farm Bureau has been making a push at the Western growers, and we've had a campaign with those two, and that has, in our service territory at least, we've seen some more ACE tickets than we have in the past few years, so that's good. If we can go to the next one, Amber. I know you guys were like 30 minutes. What? Okay, let me just keep going. This is ticket volume by month. You've summarized on the previous slide. If we can go to the next one. This is the ticket delivery. we had an anomalous month in, obviously January, we're still working out some kinks in March. Ann has a similar comment about, just that, sometimes, delivery times are up because of new spam filters that utility operators install, as we heard, earlier today, where things get put into junk when you don't want them to and so forth, or quarantine. And then on our side, where we're trying to log, did you receive it, did you receive it, did you receive it, and we're getting no, those are creeping up for both of us. But still not a deal breaker. We're still getting tickets to them very promptly, so that they have the maximum amount of time to mark in the field and not being delayed by being held up at the call center. Let's see, if we can go to the next one. This is online versus phone. The trend is comparable to how it's been. We're holding steady in the north around, let me give you through June actually. We're still at 85%, which is, we've been hovering around that this whole calendar year. We expected a dip when we changed to our new system, and it did dip slightly, but it's still hovering in the mid-80s. Dig Alert's also doing very well in that category compared nationally, where they are in the mid-70s. So they're doing very well in that category also. If we can go to the next slide, Amber, thank you. This is calls by month. I'll just remind you that we're not able to separate those on our statistics at USA North from Nevada, because sometimes people call from Nevada when they're digging in California and vice versa. It's not a lot, but it does. Nevada's only 10% of our volume, so those are mostly California numbers that you're seeing there, but just FYI. And then again, you also have some tickets or some calls that result in 0 tickets and some calls that result in multiple tickets. So calls, not as important a metric in my opinion, especially where we're doing 85% of the tickets online and Dig Alert's doing roughly 75% online. So this is a small percentage of the overall ticket, where the tickets are coming from. Okay, on the next slide. Here's the stats by month. So you can see there's that spike in April on the right that I was talking about for our speed of answer, abandon rate. Our call duration is still up significantly, which also contributes to why our speed of answer has been higher, because if a call takes longer, then it takes more people to handle the same amount of calls. Again, learning curve with the new system, but we did introduce some new questions that we didn't have before, and I'll get to those a little bit later. Okay, ticket volume by type for Dig Alert, and the next one is for USA North. Not sure if these are not really any anomalies for either one of us by month as far as these go. Roughly the same percentages. You can see just by looking at the colors at a quick glance that new is always the most, but followed by renewal, and those are the big two by far. And then all the others are into very small percentages, less than 10%, all those added together. Okay, the next one, electronic positive response. We are, let's see, sorry, Ann, I don't have your notes memorized. I think you were going to say that EPR usage is improving. Yes, same with us too. So kudos to Underground Safety Board staff. We are seeing improvements significantly on our side. You may recall the last time before you gave us the template of how you wanted the stats, I used to give you a report that showed what percentage of tickets the members were responding to on time, my members, and it was roughly about 2/3 were being marked on time. Last month it was 84%. So that's from the operator's perspective, but that's a noticeable improvement, so that's really good. And I do think a lot of it is from their letters, because municipalities in particular, who have often dismissed and blown off, perhaps unintentionally, perhaps intentionally, who knows? But anyway, we are seeing those numbers improve. So thank you, Underground Safety Board staff, for your efforts there. We were getting some more compliance there. And the other metric, you may recall, one time I gave you a report where it was talking about, even though if you look at just the raw numbers of dividing of how many tickets went out, how many needed a response, how many were responded to on time, I showed 85% roughly on time, or 84. But in the past, I used to give you one where it was from the excavator's perspective, meaning that they can only dig when all the operators on the same ticket have marked on time, right, or responded on time. And the first time I showed you that report, it was about 40%. And so I mentioned how you can see why excavators are frustrated, where if they create 10 tickets, only 4 of them have the green light to start at the legal time because every operator has responded. We're seeing that number is now about 60% now. So still not great. If you're doing it from a school perspective, 60% is still an F, but it is much better than 40%. So kudos to our member utility operators for responding more. Okay. Well, that is still a struggle. I mean, you heard you heard a great example of the challenge we have just of maintaining contact information. So to get them to use EPR is still a challenge that we've got. Okay, let's see. As far as the usage of codes, you may recall that last time we had this, and I pointed out that there is a little discrepancies on how members are interpreting to use these codes. This is not necessarily somebody's right and somebody's wrong. It's just people choosing to code things differently. An example might be, let's see if we can go to the next slide. Well, actually, sorry, go back one where you just were. Let's look at the very bottom. Provided facility location information. You can see that in the north we did that about 38,000 times, and in the south only 7,800. But then partially marked, more time is needed, 32,000 to 11,000. But then on some other ones, you see that like 004, dig alerts number is significantly higher, even though we have more tickets overall. So there is some times, and sorry, Amber, if you'll go one more, there was one that is a really good example on the next slide. There we go. Right in the middle, 030, contact facility owner for more information. That's used a lot in the north, 17,000 times, or not a lot, but more, the ratio is higher of usage in the north compared to south. Whereas right above it, 023, delineated area does not match what was on the location request. So anyway, you can just see that some members are choosing to code things a little bit differently. Again, not necessarily someone's right, someone's wrong, but without clear guidance of it would have to be a massive flow chart about, in this situation you use this code, in this situation you use that code, and sometimes there are multiple situations equal the same code, but right now it's somewhat up to the utility operators to interpret. So I'm not sure that this is, really you have it was either marked, you're clear, or some reason why it wasn't marked all the way, right? And there's 25 reasons why it wasn't marked all the way, along with those other 3. So how big of a deal it is for just these relative handful or 25, but only make up a small percentage overall. Not sure it's a deal breaker, but just if you want it on your radar. Okay, I'm not hearing, I don't know about you, Ann, but I personally don't hear complaints from members about, from our member utility operators saying they are confused about what code to use. They figured out a system. You feel the same? Okay, she's nodding in agreement for those of you online. Okay, and the last one is that the last one, or is there one more? Because there are 3 pages of EPR responses, yeah. So anyway, that's just the last of the breakdown with electronic positive response codes. Any questions about those statistics?
Member Bianchini, you gave us you're up to 60% on not marked on time. And what is yours? Do you know?
Sorry, that might not be a fair question.
No, I don't know what the actual percentage is. We are still pretty high.
So,
as the graph shows, that we still have quite a few.
But it's coming up because
Yes, it is.
Last year you were down at 13%.
Yeah, no, it is getting better.
Okay.
and to be fair to Ann, that I maybe, that's not a standard statistic that's tracked among one-call centers. So, that might not have been fair to expect that answer on the fly when, I can't remember how we came about trying to think about it, but I think it was just complaints from excavators saying there's no way that 2/3 of the tickets are on time, and then we realized, well, let's look at it from a different way. But that's not a common metric across one-call centers, so just FYI, you might not, it's not as easy as some of the other stats that you can get for every single state. So, okay, other questions? Okay, thank you. Let's see, am I going next again, or who's, I think you're next, right?
Yeah, James,
We still got more.
James, I do have one question for you. Regarding
Yes, sir,
the
Carl.
ACE ticket, and I know you provided me the current up-to-date statistics here, but some of the numbers are a little bit off on the totals. Would there be an explanation for that?
I'll have to look at that, but I will be happy to do that. As far as just the sum of all the months doesn't equal the cumulative, is that what you mean?
Let's see, go back to that page here.
Oh, yeah, on the very first page, the one column on the very first page is.
Well, so looking at, this is for USA North, so January was 58, that matches, February matches at 31, but, March, 24 on the report you gave me and 31 here, and then 105 in April matches, and then, 133 on the report you gave me, and 139 on the report here.
I'll have to double check.
Okay.
But we will do that, because there are a few things that really bug me, the statistics that don't match is one of them.
I just gave you one.
Okay, it's gonna bug, I'll take care of it, thank you. Other
So
questions?
one more question, Mr.
Member
Wingate.
Johnson.
Go on page 11, slide 11. Is this number in terms of like the bad address, the no access to locate, no delineation, and delineator does not match location, is that up from last year or is that down?
How was that compared to last year?
Yes.
That's a good question. That is a good question. This is year-to-date 2023. I can bring that tomorrow if you want. I don't have 2022 off the top of my head, but I can find that and get back to you.
Yeah, because I'd like to see, if we want to really focus on people getting the tickets on time.
Right.
And then you got these other tickets that may be possibly slowing that process down.
Yeah, I've got that report. I just don't have it pulled up right now, but I can get it to you in a minute. Other questions?
Member Charlene, since you're bringing some info tomorrow, can you update that first page?
Yes, I will.
And we'll take a look at that. Thanks.
Mr. Wingate, I have
Yes, Madam Chair.
a very exciting question for you,
Yeah.
which I think is probably future state. I know it's future state, but you guys have now calibrated your metrics, so to speak, together. How hard would it be for us to have like a goal and for each member to be able to see if they met a goal comparatively? Maybe we don't report it, but maybe we say the 999 is progressively moving down, and then we say, oh, you met it or you didn't meet it. How hard would that be with the data that you have now? Can the members see their own data this easily, or is it hard for them?
Okay. So the guys at my office who are listening to this are cheering in the background right now because they really want to start what we're calling, the working name is Member University, where we say, hey, utility operator, if you're going to participate with us, here are all the things we want you to do. We want you to keep your contact information current. We want you to respond to every ticket on time. If you have multiple facility types, such as you're a city, as we've talked about today, and you have traffic signals, water, power, et cetera, that you respond for every ticket type and therefore separate your member code so you can provide a unique response for each one. And then you can change the mapping on each one if they don't all follow the same area. You can change the contacts for each one. They have a ton of flexibility on their side, but my guys want to have a report card about how, for each member that shows that. And I presented that idea to the USA North Board of Directors and got mixed responses. One comment was something like, I've never had a vendor rate me before. And I said, well, we're not a vendor, we're an association, and you're a member of the association. And they said, still, you get the point. We've never, had something that we're voluntarily doing. And I said, well, you're not really voluntarily, it's in the law. But anyway, you see the point. There's politics, but we're still going to come up with something. I think it's, as far as measuring the numbers of how often each thing comes down, we could certainly do that. As Member Johnson asked specifically about how often the bad address is being used. Yeah, we can provide those numbers. I think it's reasonable that we could, depending on what you guys have in mind, we could probably measure it. It's easy for me to overpromise when I don't have IT here nagging or saying no. So, but we can certainly look at something like that.
Yes, thank you for that. I think that would really help with this. Did they really mean to not respond, or did they accidentally not know? Because if they're reminded every time, every month, that their 999 codes are 90, 95,
right, like
99% of all their tickets.
And I can't speak for Diggler because I don't see their individual metrics, but I find with my members that they're either using the system or they're not.
Right.
There's very few that are halfway using it. They're either using it, some are using it 100%. That's amazing. Some are using it 0%. That's not good. Most are in the 70s-ish, which would kind of match the 84% on time that I talked about before. It's probably higher than that now, but just these handful of people who are not using it at all are really dragging down a lot of the others as far as raw numbers. So,
Member Bianchini, I just did the quick math, and you are trending up. You were 17% in January, 20% in February, 22% in March, 21% in April, and 20%. So you're hovering in the 20s now.
Mr. Wingate, one other thing that I think would be interesting if you're able to, the tickets that are created online, I would be interested to know if any of those tickets were created by the same people who have a 999 for their EPR, because they are capable of using the system.
So you mean like a big utility that is an excavator on one arm and a responder to creating tickets on one arm, responding to tickets on the other arm, and see if these guys are creating tickets online but ignoring tickets that they get through electronic methods. Maybe, I don't know. Haven't thought about doing it that way before. We certainly could look at that. Yes, it is one of our pet peeves at the call center is when we hear a big utility customer service department refer something to us about we mark the lines for them, and we're like, no, we don't mark lines. We're a call center. You guys mark your own lines or hire someone to do it for you. But sometimes the big utilities are so big that customer service, who's used to getting questions about billing and changing address and whatever, doesn't know about how the Call Before You Dig program works, and they think we actually paint in the field. And so that's some of the things we deal with.
Okay. Any other? We kind of just jumped right into the board comments. Any other board comments? All right. So, Ms. Diamond, you're not presenting at all this time?
When she does the updates part for her center, then we'll each do that.
Okay. We are right at almost 5. Do you guys want to continue for another half hour? Do we want to call it? Okay. Mm-hmm.
Right, they still need to both do their presentations.
Both need to go, plus we need some updates, so.
So you want to wait till tomorrow, not
Let's wait
just go
till
for another half hour?
Let's get us.
Okay.
Yeah, my
All right.
brain's about done.
They want us when we're burned out.
Okay. All right, is this a good place to stop? Okay, so then, I guess what we'll do is we'll recess, now until tomorrow, and then we'll pick up where we left off with your presentations.
Thank you, Mr. Wingate.
All right, so we'll, recess the meeting until tomorrow at 9 a.m. See you guys in the morning. Thank you.